So, good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the October 8th, 2024 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask Reverend Beck if he would come forward to give us an invocation. Morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Myung-ha Beck, pastor at St. Paul United Methodist Church in Lusby. On behalf of the congregation, I want to say thank you for your service and leadership. Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, we gather today with gratitude for the privilege of service. I entrust our commissioners and people who gathered this morning to your care. Guide them as they meet today to discuss the matters. May they conduct this meeting with integrity, wisdom, and compassion, keeping in mind the well-being of the people in Calvert County they serve. Grant them the clarity to make sound decisions, the humility to listen to diverse perspectives, and the courage to stand by what is just and fair. Let this meeting's effort foster unity, progress, and the common good of our community. We ask for your blessing upon this meeting and all those who lead and contribute to this important work. May peace, wisdom, and understanding from God prevail in today's deliberations. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank you.
appreciate that. So, next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda submitted.
Second. A motion, a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I have some public service announcements, and we have another dog today, correct? So we've started this thing where we bring in a dog every week to promote for adoption, and I hear this one's very shy. Well, he doesn't look so shy.
Oh. Yeah, this is Rufus. He's a 9-year-old Shepherd mix.
Yeah.
When he got to the shelter, funny enough, he had no hair on him. He was covered in a disease called scabies. Super itchy, and it's crazy to see how he is now.
He doesn't look shy at all.
No, he's anxious. Maybe not shy.
Yeah. So we started doing this because we have lots of wonderful dogs at the shelter
great.
up for adoption. So every
Yeah.
week we're going to bring one in and kind of publicize. And
Yeah, a ton of dogs. It's a gold mine in there.
Yeah. Do you have room in your home and in your heart?
Yeah.
They're great companions.
How old do you think Rufus is?
He's 9.
He's
About
9?
Yeah. And we have some of his siblings at the shelter too.
And
Really?
Yeah,
house
yeah.
trained?
They're starting to get better.
Sir, did you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm Mike. I'm an animal care attendant.
He's not important. The dog's here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I work for the dog.
But thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, I just want to pass along our condolences to the passing of Judge Stam. He was the county administrative judge in St. Mary's County. Judge Stam was only 68 years old, died suddenly last week. Had a very long legal career, and want to just pass along our condolences to his family. And the Calvert County flag will be flown at half-staff in honor of his life and public service. Also, just want to send our hearts out again to all those victims of Hurricane Helene and down in Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. And just want to thank all the volunteers and first responders. We this morning found out that we've had 2 first responders go down there to help out on their own time, to help out with the needs of those citizens. And the gentleman here this morning said you just can't imagine what it looks like down there. Just devastating.
There have also been a lot of community groups that have taken on upon their own to collect supplies and send down there from the county as well. I've seen them all over Facebook, and it's a shame. The worst part about it, hopefully that area is not affected by this one, but there's another significant one. I think one of the biggest 5 we've ever had getting ready to hit Florida again. Those people 3 years ago haven't recovered from that one, and then 3 weeks ago they had another one, and here we have another one bearing down on them. So hope everyone remains safe on this one.
FEMA doesn't have enough money, so.
Of course not. And just want to make you aware, be careful when you make donations, that you make them to organizations that are certified. They've already announced some scams going on from people who've made donations to what they thought were legitimate organizations, turn out not to be. So, make sure that when you give a donation, it goes to a legitimate organization. We always give to the Red Cross because we know that it's going to go in the right place. So anything you can do, and keep them in your prayers, please. Also, Election Day is right around the corner on Tuesday, November the 5th, so early voting's getting ready to start on October the 15th, I think.
Is that when it
starts?
starts?
October 24th.
October 24th, I'm sorry. So just make sure you find time in your schedules to vote. Early voting's open for 9 days, I believe, and then, of course, Tuesday, November the 5th. Please vote. And just want to remind everybody that we do have fare, free public transportation in Calvert County. If you need a ride to vote, you can always call, find out where the route is. Won't cost you a dime, and they will drop you off at a voting center. And Columbus Day is on October the 14th, where we will recognize the historic landing of Italian explorer Christopher Columbus to the New World. So, and that was 300 years ago. No, more than that. The anniversary was first celebrated 300 years ago. I can do a little bit of math. So, that concludes all my public service announcements for today. First item on the agenda is proclamation, and our first proclamation today is for White Cane Awareness Day. Commissioner Hart? And
Yes, sir,
I believe
Mr.
we have a
President.
guest.
Yes.
Good morning, Jen. You going to get us started this morning? All right.
Our guest could have. This is the microphone. If I'm gonna put it aside, do you want to say a few words?
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. White Cane Safety Day was, first day was 1964 by President Lyndon B. Johnson. And the white cane represents independence for individuals who are blind throughout Calvert County. This actually helps us to seek employment because without being able to move around, you cannot do things like have a work-life balance and to participate and be great citizens in your county. So I want to say thank you for this opportunity. Say October 15th is the actual day of when we celebrate the White Cane Safety Day. And then also too, I would like to let you know that I'm a member on the Commission for Individuals with Disabilities, as well as the president of one of the counties in Maryland, Prince George County, for the National Federation of the Blind. And there's also individuals in your county that also are part of the National Federation of the Blind. And we would like to let you know that the white cane, when you see it, you know that we are letting the world know that we are blind, we're independent, and we're willing to help and serve so well in the areas where we all live. I also want to take the opportunity, too, that on October 9th is also an event that the county is having under the Department of Family Services in Prince George County. It's a virtual event, and we welcome all. It's about employment, so it's the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And we just also, on behalf of that, would like to let citizens in Calvert County know about the individuals who live amongst you who are always seeking independence in that way. We're looking for a hand up, not a hand out, and so we appreciate that. When I give that information, I will definitely forward it over. So I just want to say, once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for so.
Hold on one second. I'll take that. You got it?
Do you want us to just come in front of the?
Yeah, if you can come in front of this, that would be better.
Yeah, we can do
It's
that.
not hard to get through that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Bring you up
Yep.
here. Did you just follow me? Got my elbow? Yes. Yep. And you can stand right here. We're just gonna turn around. That's good.
All right. Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming, making the trip up here today. I want to thank you, and we have this proclamation for you today. It says, whereas the white cane, which every blind citizen of our county has the right to carry, symbolizes their ability to lead a full, independent life and work productively in competitive employment. And whereas the white cane allows blind individuals to move freely and safely, making it possible for them to fully participate and contribute to society and live prosperous lives. And all citizens should be aware the law requires motorists, cyclists to exercise caution when approaching a blind person carrying a white cane. Whereas Maryland law also calls upon public and private employers to recognize the value and skills of our blind citizens and to utilize their productive capabilities. Whereas the state of Maryland, through its public agencies within assistance of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland, should continue to promote employment opportunities and greater acceptance of blind persons in the competitive labor market. Now therefore let it be proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County that October 15th, 2024 be known as White Cane Awareness Day in Calvert County. Be it further proclaimed that the board calls upon schools and employers to provide a full range of training to blind persons to create new opportunities in our rapidly changing society, and urges all citizens to recognize the white cane as a tool of independence for their blind pedestrians on our streets and highway, given under our hands and seal this 8th day, October 24th, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Oh, yeah, of course, here you go.
I'm going to hand this to you right here. Yes, indeed.
Stay where you're at, and we're going to have the commissioners come around you. Hold on. I just wanted to make a comment about the National Federation for the Blind. They are actually sponsoring a digital equity summit coming up next week. And we actually have some of our county staff that are participating in that digital equity summit. They have a webinar series that's all week long, and then the summit that I believe is October 15th in Baltimore. We're very grateful to partner with University of Maryland and the National Federation for the Blind to make sure that people are aware of all of the equity issues surrounding connection with, online, AI, computers, all of it. It's important that we continue to work with disability groups on those topics. So.
All right, thank you, Jen.
Are you ready?
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So the next proclamation that we have today is for National 4-H Week, which is very appropriate following up on the county fair.
Absolutely. Would you come up and introduce yourselves? It looks like you have quite a few here with you, and they can follow suit.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here today. I'm super excited that the 4-Hers could come out and introduce you to National 4-H Week. The theme this year is Beyond Ready, in which 4-H is helping our youth become beyond ready for the challenges they're going to face tomorrow and in their future. So without further ado, I'm going to let the youth introduce themselves. Oh, and my name is Kirsten Cowan. Sorry about that.
And who are you? What do you do?
I am the 4-H educator here in Calvert County, so I oversee all 4-H programming with the help of my awesome volunteers.
Perfect.
Good.
I'm Brenna Cranford, and I'm part of the 4-H Heritage Program.
Okay, what did you do in 4-H this year?
I raised 4 hogs, and we did some potato picking with our group.
And what'd you do with the potatoes?
We donated them to a food pantry.
Very good.
Perfect.
All right, come on up.
Good.
Hi, my name's Francesca, and I'm part of the 4-H Heritage Group.
Thank you. Come on up. You're last. She's a talker. I'm going to have fun with her.
Hello, my name is James, and I'm 8 years old, and I'm a part of the 4-H club, and my favorite. And I raised one sheep, but I did not auction him because I really liked him.
I understand that.
All right, come on up, buddy.
Go for it, Sophia.
Good job, man.
I'm Sophia Godwin of
Do you remember your club name? The Chesapeake Clovers.
I'm Sophia Godwin of the Chesapeake Clovers.
Good job.
And your artwork here? Do you want to show it real quick?
No.
Sophia entered some artwork in fair.
Good job.
Good job, Sophia.
They are so awesome.
Hi, my name is Olivia Noto. I'm 12 years old, and I'm the secretary of the 4-H Calvert Heritage Club. And this year I raised 6 sheep and auctioned 2 of them. I'm breeding 3 of them.
Okay. What else did you do at the fair?
At the fair this year, I talked about my youth conservationist sheep. At the Sheep and Wool Festival this year in May, there was a youth conservationist program for breeds that were that are endangered, and so we're trying to help young people start their flocks so that we can conserve these breeds. So I talked a lot about those with the public and raised their interests, and I think I did a really good job of it.
Okay. And at the awards ceremony, what did you do? Other than entertain everybody?
At the award ceremony, I gave a very extemporaneous speech about all of our volunteers and how hard they worked. I think they all deserved it because they all did an extraordinary job. Of course, there were tons of people there that I could have talked about too, but if I did that, I've been there for like hours. I was really proud of my volunteers and how hard they worked because, well, we wouldn't have the club without them, and it would have been like the St. George's County Fair, where it would have shut down if there weren't any volunteers that wanted to help the 4-H kids.
Correct. For those that didn't know, Prince George's County didn't have a fair this year. That's what she's referring to there. But parents, how many parents do we have here? All right, I'll get you guys to come up. Olivia, thank you for letting me call on you and answer those questions.
Thank you, sir.
Family, you want to come on up too? Stand up here with them. Introduce yourselves. It takes a lot. You know, the reason I want them to recognize themselves is they work the fair countless hours, particularly as they have livestock. And, you know, I'm there a lot too. When I look out and always see the same faces, and it's like they live there during the week. So it takes a lot. We appreciate you doing that with your kids.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. We really appreciate your time and the fact that you're acknowledging the existence of such an important program. Without your support, obviously there's much needed funding. We wouldn't be able to go forward with stuff like this so easily. We've got a lot of volunteers that work undercover year-round, and you're right, we do spend a lot of hours at the fair. We were all very exhausted, finally just coming back around now. And I do wish that we had time to thank everybody individually. Olivia's right, you know, without you guys, without the unsaid awesomeness, you know, we might not be here. So
Well,
thank
it's
you.
great to see you all pointing them in the right direction. Come on up if you would.
So I'm Rachel Lyle Cranford, the mom of Brenna, and this is our first year in 4-H, and so we're just thankful for all the help and support that we've received.
And I'm Philip Cranford, Brenna's father, and this is our first year in 4-H. And the fair was definitely very involved, and we didn't know what to expect, but all the volunteers helped make it happen, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm Sophia's mom.
Well, thanks, Sarah. Come on up. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to read the proclamation. Olivia, thanks for making my job easy this morning. Whereas 4-H is America's largest youth development organization, supporting nearly 6 million youth nationwide, including thousands in Calvert County who have become confident, independent, and compassionate leaders. And whereas 4-H is delivered by Cooperative Extension and network over 100 public universities that provide hands-on learning experiences in health, science, agriculture, and civic engagement. And whereas Maryland 4-H is a part of the University of Maryland Extension, which serves as a research and outreach arm of the University of Maryland's College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And whereas National 4-H Week highlights the positive impact 4-H youth in Calvert County make in their community and the valuable contributions of its 600,000 volunteers and 3,500 professionals nationwide. Whereas investigating time and resources in 4-H youth development programs helps young people reach their full potential, developing life skills and preparing them for a diverse society. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners that the week of October 7th through 12th, 2024 is National 4-H Week. We urge all residents to support the 4-H community, not just this week, but throughout the year. Be it further proclaimed that the Calvert County Board of County Commissioners commends all local 4-H members, volunteers, and staff of their commitment to building a brighter future for all citizens. Given under our hands and seal this 8th day of October, 2024, signed by all five. Although they're going to grab the flag for the picture. You're good there.
Perfect.
You can actually see over there.
Make sure it's in the right direction. Campus will get mad at me. There we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Perfect. Smile. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Congratulations, everybody. Good job.
Oh, okay. Did you guys have a lot of fun? Yeah. I'm with you, young man. I would have kept you too. Yes, I would have. Thank you, sir.
Todd saw you talk the other night, so. So I just want to echo Commissioner Ireland's comments, you know, that I tell everybody that has young children, you either get them involved in 4-H or scouting, and neither of those organizations could exist without the volunteers and the parents. So we appreciate the parents and the volunteers for sure.
She went to state competition last year.
Thank you, Olivia.
And our last proclamation for National Fire Prevention Week. Mr. Cox.
Good morning, Commissioners. Erin Ward, Recruitment and Retention Specialist with Fire Rescue EMS Division of Public Safety. This week is Fire Prevention Week, a national event observed since 1922 to honor the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 and promote fire safety education. This year's theme is Smoke Alarms, Make Them Work for You. It focuses on the importance of functioning smoke alarms and proper maintenance. According to the National Fire Protection Association, working smoke alarms can reduce the risk of death in homes by half. By those not regularly maintained may fail in emergencies. That's why this year's campaign is critical in preventing fire-related incidents in our community. With the continued support of our county commissioners and the entire community, we can work together to promote fire safety practices, reduce the risk of fires in our county, and ultimately save lives. In case you weren't aware, numerous of our departments are holding open houses this year. They'll all be this month, so inviting community members to make sure they stop by. No one understands the importance of this week better than our committed volunteers who work tirelessly to protect our citizens from fire-related dangers. I'm honored to have several of those local heroes here today to support raising awareness on fire safety, and I invite them to come up now and introduce themselves. We also have members from our public safety department, which I'd like to ask them to come up as well.
Perfect. Come on up, Aaron.
job, guys.
They're all shy.
I know. They don't like to recognize as much
Ah.
as they should.
Good morning, Commissioners. Monty Parks, Public Safety, Fire Rescue EMS Division.
Good morning,
Come on, big
Commissioners. Katie Gatton. I'm the Administrative Coordinator for Fire Rescue EMS.
My name is Bethany Higgs, and I'm with North Beach Volunteer Fire Department.
Good morning. Donna Ford with Solomon's Volunteer Rescue Squad and Fire Department.
Eric Morgan, Chief of Counter Advanced Life Support.
Kate Murchison, I'm a fireman at Huntingtown Volunteer Fire Department.
Carlos Gant, Chief of Prince Redick Volunteer Rescue Squad.
Jason Sharp, Deputy Chief of Prince Frederick Fire Department.
Marty Sealy, the Safety Officer at Dunkirk Volunteer Fire Department.
Lieutenant Lori Brightwell Hancock, St. Leonard Fire Department.
Dan Firth, Chief of Calvert County Rescue Dive Team.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Grierson, Calvert County Emergency Manager and volunteer at Huntingtown Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad.
Good morning, Dave McDowell, Public Safety Director, and I just want to acknowledge the efforts of Aaron and the rest of the public safety staff who support the volunteers every single day as they carry out their positions. And it has truly been an education and an honor for me over the last year to really see inside what our volunteers do and the commitment that they put forward every day to, yes, keep our county very safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Come on up. So, National Fire Prevention Week. I also want to take this time to thank each and every one of you for what you do. I think it's a good week to promote that even more, not only when we make the call, but the training you all put in, the times at the firehouse. So I'm going to call out on two. Mr. Sharp, did you just get promoted?
Yes, sir.
To what?
Captain.
Captain, congratulations. And one more, Mr. Sealy, how many years you been volunteering in Calvert County?
Looks like a long time. I started at Solomon's when I was 16, and so I'm 69 now, so somebody can do the math for me real quick. When I got married, I found my bride up in Dunkirk, so I moved to Dunkirk and been there ever since.
Thank you very much. So each and every, thank you for what you do each and every day. Thank you. And just like Aaron said, this is a great week to promote. Most of your fires come from kitchens. So how many has a fire extinguisher in their kitchen? And not in a box under the cabinet, but yes, and how many, just like Aaron just said, how many has tested their smoke alarm? And one more thing I might add to that, have a good escape route of where you're going to go and where you're going to meet once you get out of the fire and get your family back to safety. So thank you for everything you do, and without further ado, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas the week of October 6th through the 12th, 2024 has been designated National Fire Prevention Week, and whereas over 900 dedicated volunteers from Calvert County Fire and Rescue EMS are committed to protecting the safety and well-being of the citizens and businesses of Calvert County by devoting countless hours to fire prevention efforts. And whereas fire remains a serious public safety threat, with personal dwellings posing the greatest risk for Calvert County residents. And whereas the National Fire Protection Association research shows that cooking remains a leading cause of home fires, with 1 out of every 3 houses fires originating in the kitchen. And whereas ensuring the continuous strength and success of Calvert County's volunteer fire and rescue EMS departments is essential to all welfare and all Calvert County citizens. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Calvert County Commissioners, the week of October 6th through the 12th, 2024 is recognized Fire Prevention Week in Calvert County. Be it further proclaimed that all citizens are encouraged to take part the ongoing fire safety education. This year's themes, smoke alarms. Make them work for you.
serves as a critical reminder to check out the smoke alarms are properly installed, regularly tested, and maintained to protect against fire hazards. We urge the residents of Calvert County to ensure their homes are equipped with functioning smoke alarms during Fire Prevention Week 2024, and to continue supporting our dedicated volunteers to their fire prevention efforts, given under our hands and seal this 8th day of October 2024. Thank you.
Let's see those smiles. Everybody get your chance to blink really quick. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much for all you do.
That's right. Hopefully I get little Mark to come work for me and life will be great.
See you. Have a great day.
Is that what you're going for? Okay, all right. Look forward to
Have a
it.
good day. See ya.
So look, all of our fire departments are volunteer. They're all looking for members. You don't have to ride a fire truck. They have administrative positions, fundraising. There are lots of jobs there that you can do besides riding on a fire truck. So if you feel a desire, please reach out and join. Great. So the next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Calvert County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Cox.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ellen Simpson, Acting Senior Human Resources Analyst from Human Resources. It is my pleasure to introduce Matt Peter, the Executive Director from Local Government Insurance Trust. He's the guy with the big check.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
Matt Peter. It is my distinct privilege today to deliver a grant check to the county and the sheriff's office in the amount of $14,293.60. I'm very excited about this program because this grant is for EVOC training for all of your deputy sheriffs. At Legit, we are very excited that Calvert County and the Sheriff's Department took the time to acknowledge that they've had a number of accidents. They want to try to address the issue, so they are going to, as my understanding, all of the deputies are going to go and get this emergency vehicle training for regular daytime driving, emergency situations, the kind of training most of them had before they graduated the academy and not since. The other thing we're really excited about is we see a demonstrated commitment by the county and the sheriff's office, because earlier this year, one of my colleagues was here to deliver a grant, I think for $15,000 for the telematics program. I hope that you guys are going to become an example for a lot of our other members, recognizing that there's an issue, because all of our members have an issue with auto accidents, and you guys seem to be spearheading away and developing a program that is going to hopefully reduce driver accidents, help the community out. So I'm proud to present this check.
Great, thank you. Come on up.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Sheriff Cox, again, thank you for acknowledging our efforts to make our citizens and our deputies safer as far as the stuff we've been implementing. And the EVOC training is one of the best EVOC training centers, I think, in the entire Eastern Seaboard in FLETC. So we'll be sending all the deputies there, getting them trained up, and it's my commitment to keep them safe and our citizens safe. And I think training is key. I've been saying that since I've been elected sheriff, and we're going to continue to do that. And thank you for the check and the training. I know training budgets can always get slim there at the end, but you know, this is important to us, and thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you.
We appreciate the
Yes, sir.
opportunity to support.
Appreciate
Sheriff,
that.
you have some deputies down there?
Absolutely.
Come on up forward.
Come on up.
So real quick, while they're coming up, I commend you both for legit and Ricky Sheriff Cox for taking the initiative to do that. I mean, it's right. I mean, deputies go through EVOC training in the academy, and very seldom is it ever revisited throughout their 25, 30-year career, whatever it ends up being. We've touched on it, and we've been proactive throughout the years in touching on it and making sure that we did do training, but it's important. It really is. I mean, you got these guys out here running lights and siren and, these braking exercises, and it's something as simple as back. And fortunately, you have cameras now, so I'm sure that helps. I'm sure Legit really likes those cameras too. But good job. I
As
appreciate
you
that.
touched on that, I mean, just beyond the responding to domestic violence calls, I mean, deputies or officers across the nation are, the way we get injured is driving that police car.
Correct.
Trying to, get to those calls as fast as we can. But the better training that we have, the more training we have, will be better, well-rounded sheriff's office. And I think we have to get Commissioner Hart in there, some EVOC training as well. Get him trained up and get him
In
responding.
his own
calls.
car.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Lieutenant Rob Selkirk. I just want to say thank you, Administrative Judicial Services Bureau. Thank you.
I'm Thomas Tilley, Lieutenant Tilley from District 3. I want to thank you for the grant that you gave us.
Jason Dean, Lieutenant Patrol District 2, the Sheriff's Office. We just finished up year 1 of this pilot program, this training, and the feedback we received from our personnel is probably some of the best training these guys have had in years. So we thank you for your continued support.
Lieutenant Eric Basham, District 1. I was one of the dinosaurs that they threw into the training first off. Commissioner Ireland said, it was probably the first time I had EVOC training since I was in the academy 20 plus years ago. It was amazing, eye-opening, a lot of fun, but definitely new maneuvers. 20 years later, it's still kind of the same thing, but it definitely is as well as advanced.
Just to touch on Lieutenant Basham there, as commissioners, you're well known that we still chase and we still hold people accountable for breaking the law in our county. And we're involved in a lot of chases out there, and I think this training betters us as well, so thank you.
Good seeing you again. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
How you doing, sir? How you doing? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, oh, he's got them all up here. I'll give them back to you.
Oh, do you need
No, I'll take care of it. I'll give it back to you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Commissioners, just a special thanks to Miss Ellen Simpson for putting this together. She was huge on making this happen for us. I just want to say a quick thank you to her.
Thank
The
you,
job
Ellen.
that she did. Thank you.
And Sheriff, while you're here, this is just one of many, you have been so proactive, whether it's with the schools, in the communities, doing things. I mean, you've had officers going to the communities. It's just another one, and thank you. I told you before, I don't know when you have time to sleep, because every time I look, you are somewhere, and just thank you.
I'm proud of where we live and what we do here. So, I'm a part of our community, and I want to make it best for our kids. And I tell the kids that, I want this place to be like it was when I grew up here. So that's what we want to maintain.
And I get a lot of great response from the community when we talk about the sheriff's office, so.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And the help from you guys is appreciated as well, and the support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Next item on the agenda is appointments. We have one today.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Turner, Deputy County Administrator. We do have one Board of Appeals for you this morning. We will present it in 3 parts. The first, staff recommends the board reappoint Thomas Ireland.
I move that we reappoint Thomas Ireland.
I'm abstaining from this vote.
Second.
A motion and a second that we reappoint Thomas Ireland. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Again, I abstain.
Thank you. Staff recommends for the Board of Appeals that you appoint Joseph McKinney to fill the remaining regular member vacancy.
I move that we appoint Joseph McKinney to fill the remaining regular member vacancy.
Second.
A motion and a second to appoint Joseph McKinney. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. We have 2 alternate members, Sonia Wagner and Thomas Briscoe. Staff recommends the board identify which member you would prefer to be alternate number 1 and alternate number 2.
I move that we appoint Thomas Briscoe as primary or alternate 1 and Sonia Wagner as alternate 2 for the Board of Appeals.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to appoint Thomas Briscoe as alternate 1 and Sonia Wagner as alternate 2. Is there any discussion on that motion?
None.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
So the next item on the agenda is consent. We have a couple items under consent today. Item 1, Department of Finance and Budget Amendment for the American Rescue Plan Act Project Stormwater Management at Halloween Point Park. Item 2, Office of the County Administrator, Child Support Program Agreements and Leases. Item 3, Department of Community Resources Fiscal Year 2025 Local Early Childhood Advisory Council Quality Improvement Grant. Are there any objections to those items listed under consent today?
None.
I have none.
None.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Items.
Have a motion and a second that we approve those items listed under consent today. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is old business. Department of Planning and Zoning, Coward County Zoning Ordinance Update. I think this is the last one.
Yes, sir.
It seems like we've been doing this for years.
Yeah,
We have.
because we have.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mary Beth Cook, Director of Planning and Zoning. With me is Rachel O'Shea, our zoning planner, and Will Hager, Planner 3. Today we are here, that we're close to the finish line. Today we're going to be walking through some changes that were made. We are looking for any questions you have, any changes you want made. We then have a session with the Planning Commission next week. After that, we will be drafting the public hearing draft. Once that draft is released, we cannot make any changes because it'll be, the legal ads will be posted for the public hearing. I also wanted to note that we are changing the public hearing date for the Board of County Commissioners. We had advertised a tentative date for December 9th. I think it's going to be on the 17th, but I suggest the public watch for the legal notices that will be in the newspaper for confirmation on that date. But that'll be an evening public hearing here in the Commissioners' hearing room. So with that, Will's going to take us through a presentation. And again, if you have any questions, stop us. If you have any changes you want made, let us know now.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth, and good morning, Commissioners.
Hello, Will.
Okay, we're going to begin this presentation by briefly going over some background on how we arrived at where we are today. Staff prepared a draft ordinance to bring the zoning ordinance into compliance with the current comprehensive plan, and that draft zoning ordinance was made available to the public in May of 2023. Staff has revised the draft based on feedback received from the commissioners as well as the public and volunteer boards. That revised draft was made available to the public on August 30th of this year, and the materials that were made public on August 30th included a finalized version of the August 2024 draft, a redlined version where all edits that had been made to the draft articles could be viewed, and a document that highlighted the substantive changes that had been made and differences between the previous draft and the most recent draft. The public comment period for that August 2024 draft closed on September 27th, and public comments we received were forwarded to the commissioners for review prior to today's meeting. The purpose of today's work session is primarily to review changes that have been made to the draft and to highlight some of the major differences between them, and to give the commissioners the opportunity to discuss any public comments received. And as far as the changes that have been made, we're going to start with the definitions article, and we'll start with the definition that has been revised in the August 2024 draft, and that is the definition of density. The definition of density has been revised and now states that density is the number of dwelling units permitted per the net acreage of a parcel as opposed to the gross acreage of a parcel, which is in line with the current policy. Net acreage is the number of acres of a parcel remaining after tidal wetlands, non-tidal wetlands, and state wetlands are deducted from the gross acreage of a parcel.
So, just an example, if you have a property located on the water and you have marsh, in the past, sometimes we've counted that marsh towards density, wetlands.
We had proposed changing it so that it would be easier to calculate density. Currently, you cannot count it towards density, so we're keeping it consistent with the current policy.
Right.
Correct. Moving on to the articles that address characteristics of the zoning districts, Articles 4 through 8. We removed a maximum lot area requirements of 3 acres for clustered subdivisions in the Farm and Forest District and the Rural Community District. So essentially what that would mean is that as long as we're getting the required amount of preserved open space in the clustered subdivision, you could create a 4 or 5 acre lot if you so desire. You wouldn't be restricted from the zoning ordinance from doing so. We also removed setback requirements that were more restrictive for lots over 3 acres in size in the Farm and Forest District, Rural Community District, and Rural Neighborhood District. We thought that these increased setback requirements for properties over 3 acres potentially disincentivized their creation, and it allows for more uniformity within the district in terms of setback requirements. We also increased the minimum lot area requirements in the Rural Neighborhood District and in the Residential District, if not connected to sewer, from 30,000 square feet to 1 acre. And transfer zone density has been reduced in the Residential District from 4 dwelling units per acre to 1 dwelling unit per acre. And the draft zoning map has also been updated. What we're looking at in this slide is the south end of the county. And what has changed as compared with the previous draft map is that the heavy industrial district, the I-2 district, has been expanded to the Appeal Landfill Solomon's Wastewater Treatment Plant area, which was light industrial district in the previous draft, as well as surrounding parcels, which were rural community district previously. And the heavy industrial district has also been expanded to the parcel directly south of the Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Power Plant, which is a parcel under current zoning is split between light industrial and farm and forest. And there have also been some revisions made to the uses, both permitted and not permitted, in the heavy industrial district, which we'll cover on another slide further in the presentation.
That's what I was going to say. You have that there, but somebody not following, you know the attention that's getting. Can you reflect back to that when you get to that slide to make sure people can put that together? Because I don't want to get lost in translation.
Yes.
But first, a couple changes that were made to Article 17, transferable development rights, that we'd like to highlight. Table 17-1, residential density and minimum lot sizes for town centers has been added to the draft, and in all town centers, any district with a permitted residential density over 4 dwelling units per acre under current regulations has been reduced to a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre in the draft. And Section 17-2A now states that 1 transferable development right is allocated per net acre of land within the APD. This is a change from the current policy in which TDRs are allocated based off of gross acreage, despite the fact that residential density is calculated based off net acreage. And a number of revisions have been made to the uses article, and we have several slides to cover them. To start, detached accessory dwellings, the maximum square footage of gross floor area permitted has been increased from 1,200 square feet to 1,500 square feet. Townhouse, quadruplex, and triplex dwellings are no longer permitted in the residential district. Short-term rental has been removed from the list of uses on the use table, meaning the status quo of not requiring a use permit for short-term rentals would continue. For tenant homes, the minimum acreage required has been reduced from 50 acres to 25 acres. And manufactured homes on individual lots or parcels are now permitted with conditions in the Rural Neighborhood District, Waterfront Community District, and Residential District. And this change was made due to the passage of the Housing Expansion and Affordability Act, HB 538, which requires local jurisdictions to permit manufactured housing in zones that allow single-family residential uses.
So what's the definition of a manufactured house?
You're
It's
talking
not
like
a-
those put-together ones, right? When they put them together in a shop and bring them down on a trailer, right?
Yeah, that's
That's
a
correct.
modular, right?
But that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought when I was reading it, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I
Not
don't
a
have the
trailer.
definition in front of me, but it's a very technical
Oh,
definition.
good point. Yeah, not a trailer, correct?
That's a mobile home.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
what I want to make sure everybody understands, the difference. It's,
Yes.
we're not starting to allow mobile homes. These are the manufactured ones, as Commissioner Hart says. You haul them down the road and put them together.
Correct.
Gotcha.
That was my guess, but thank you.
And, did I interrupt someone? I'm sorry.
Do we have a square footage on that, Mary Beth? Has that been in the previous?
For the manufactured homes, no, there's no limit on that.
Because sometimes they're 2 stories.
Correct, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Manufactured homes have also been called modular homes.
That's correct, yes.
And last on this slide, home occupation class 1, which is a home occupation where there are no on-site appointments or clients and no employees that aren't permanent residents of the dwelling, has been removed and is no longer a use listed on the use chart. And what that essentially means is that unless your home occupation involves clients coming to the house or includes employees that aren't permanent residents of the house, it will no longer require a use permit before we can sign off on a business license as is currently required. So this is a change that helps simplify and streamline the process for small businesses operating out of homes.
So if I do taxes, but I don't have any employees, that's going to be allowed?
Only if you're doing, no one's coming to the home. As
Right.
long as you have customers, you have to get a permit. So if you were
can still
doing them
do it, You just
online,
have to get a permit. What's that entail to get a permit?
It's just a regular use permit. Class 1s have to get them now. So by doing so, if you just have a home office, that would be a Class 1. You would no longer need a use permit. We still have Class 2 and Class 3. That involves employees and on-site appointments. You would just need to get a use permit for that. They're
So you can have
pretty basic.
employees, you just have to get a permit?
Yes,
And there's a limit on the number of employees you can have, even if you have a permit, correct?
yes.
And that's based on the size of the home or the lot, or?
We do have a limit of square footage that you can utilize for your home occupation.
But if someone makes an appointment, and if the public, anyone from the public comes to my home for whatever business I'm in, you have to get a permit, which is just a license.
And we kind of draw the line there because, you're going to be increasing traffic to the home. You're going to be requiring additional parking to accommodate those folks. So we would like to see those plans so that, to make sure that you have those designated areas.
And before anybody gets all excited, you know, we've had issues in the past where people have opened up a business in their home and all of a sudden there's 25 cars a day coming in their driveway in a private road that's shared, and they park on the street because there's no parking at the home. So it's just trying to address those issues and make sure that they can accommodate, correct?
Correct, yep. And those are the type of details that we ask for. We ask for like a general business plan so that we understand what your operations look like, and then we can place you in the right category.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide. Farmers Market is now a permitted use in the Rural Community District, Rural Neighborhood District, Waterfront Community District, and Residential District, with the condition that if the farmers market is located in a permanent structure, the footprint of the structure is limited to 1,500 square feet. Agricultural, seafood, and livestock processing is now permitted in the Farm and Forest District.
Before you rush through.
Go ahead.
So you can't have a tailgate market? It's gotta be in a permanent structure?
No, the condition is if it is in a permanent structure, then the square footage is limited.
If it is.
If, yes, if
Okay.
it is.
So,
Just wanna be clear so everybody understands.
so what would that do for Armory Square in that pavilion? That's gonna be more than 1,500 square feet.
But that'll be a
Is that-
structure
That's
that's
in the town
permitted
center.
at, the-
Is it a
I-
per unit?
It's a town
Okay,
center.
town center
Right.
is gonna negate, okay, just making
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, I believe right now, farmers market is just not a permitted use in any capacity in those districts.
Okay.
Right.
And we did have some conversations with members of the public that were interested in such a proposal.
And just wanted to make sure everybody knew it wasn't gonna affect tailgate markets, if somebody wanted to do one of those.
So next bullet, agricultural, seafood, and livestock processing is now permitted in the Farm and Forest District, Rural Community District, Rural Neighborhood District, and Residential District on farm properties, provided the farm has received all required state licenses and approvals. And public events and public assemblies on farmland is now a permitted special exception use with conditions in the Rural Community District, Rural Neighborhood District, and Residential District. And the number of events permitted per year has been increased from 2 to 12.
Now, Mary Beth, if they want to go over 12, what do they need to do?
So it's not permitted, but I guess there is potential that they could go to Board of Appeals because they're there for a special exception anyway. That was the number that the Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board was comfortable with, because 2 is just not enough.
No, right,
And
absolutely.
12, they've been approving up to 12 currently
Okay.
without it necessarily being permitted, but that was the number they chose.
Okay.
And those 12 can happen in a short period of time.
Or all summer, or throughout the year, yes.
It's not a monthly thing.
No.
Okay, next slide. And on this slide, we'll address some of the changes that have been made to the industrial districts and town centers. Uses like asphalt plant and heavy manufacturing and/or assembly are no longer permitted in the heavy industrial district. And adult enterprises is no longer permitted in the industrial mixed-use district or anywhere else in the county for that matter.
So things like a creosote plant, they're already not allowed.
No,
Those
if
kinds
it-
of, that have
Odors.
Yeah, no type of
issues with-
toxic
yeah,
type of emissions, what have you,
pollution, those kinds
correct?
of things. They're
If-
already banned.
There isn't a use listed on the use charts, then it's not permitted, and we don't have any uses like that listed.
If you're I've got the definition of heavy manufacturing here.
Please.
It's establishments involved in the basic processing and manufacturing of materials or products predominantly from extracted or raw materials and that are generally not compatible with residential uses. This includes, but is not limited to foundries, fossil fuel refineries, and similar heavy industrial uses.
Okay.
So moving forward, data center has been added to the use chart and is permitted as a special exception use with conditions in the heavy industrial district. And for a reminder, a special exception use means that a proposal requires Board of Appeal approval. And the condition for this use is that the data center shall be set back 200 feet from all property lines and 500 feet from any lot or parcel with a residential building or active residential building permit, except for adjacent properties under common ownership.
So From a residential area, it's 500 feet.
At least, unless, yeah,
But
correct.
because it's a special exception, we could require greater.
The Board of Appeals has that ability to add additional conditions.
And right now, we would not allow, a data center would only be allowed in the heavy industrial.
That is the only district where it's currently permitted.
And we have very limited heavy industrial zone land in the county currently, correct?
Right, one of the advantages may be to introducing this I-2 district to better be able to focus where you'd like to see particular uses.
So the land that's zoned heavy industrial currently is only, can you, off the top of
So
your head?
when you say currently, I'm presuming
Currently.
you mean under the current regulations, there is no heavy industrial district currently. The only industrial district we have currently is the I-1 light industrial. The I-2, the heavy industrial, and the IMU, the industrial mixed use, have been introduced with this zoning ordinance update.
That's the point I'm trying to get across, that there's very limited opportunity for heavy industrial. And as of today, there's really none. So the only thing we're adding is this new area in the south end, in those two locations.
What we looked at that previous map, which we can go back to, that is all of the proposed heavy industrial
In the entire county.
zones in the county.
And that's mainly because those are large tracts that are not located near high residential areas.
And once again, there's no toxicity whatsoever, back to the original
No
usage.
asphalt plants.
Right, no asphalts, not gonna be pushing tar or anything,
No
right?
fossil fuel
Yeah.
refineries.
Correct?
Right. Just trying to make sure people understand what we're doing here today. That it's-
There's a lot of concern, and I get it.
Absolutely.
And last note on the industrial districts, public recreation areas have been added, are now permitted in the draft in the I-1 and I-2 zoning districts.
Is that limited to indoor?
No. No, it's just any public recreation area.
Would we envision someone putting an outdoor public recreation area in an industrial zone?
There was some concern raised when the property north of the landfill was proposed to be rezoned I-2, that was the area designated for the park, and so it can continue to be a recreational park. Under
With no restrictions on recreation.
With
Yeah.
adequate
Right.
buffers?
Absolutely.
And then moving on to the town centers, commercial pier has been added as a special exception use in the C4 sub-area of the Solomons Town Center, and drive-through facilities are permitted with conditions in the village commercial district of Lusby Town Center.
Now, before you leave that slide, so Mary Beth would know the history. You remember that was very contested because of the dynamics, right? You have Roseby Hall Road and HG, that's it. So you kind of have that T. And the concern was, this is even dated before me, that a, say, fast food restaurant that's extremely popular, got 25, 30 cars, there is nowhere for it to go. So this goes all the way back, even my conversation used to be with Rye, with the use of the other property over by the post office, about a flow-through and how trucks have to go and all. Does that slide allow fast food restaurant A? Because remember, the way, there's only really one area. That's all there is. There's really only one area there to go. I don't know how you would get a lot of cars out of there. So that was never included intentionally, and I remember that discussion, asking about that years and years ago. What is the intent?
So I do believe that drive-throughs are permitted elsewhere in Lusby Town Center, and this was excluded. But When they come in with the site plan, we will be looking at circulation, we will be looking at traffic, and the site will have to work to meet all of the other criteria of the ordinance, and also get site plan approval. But
And that's
this
what
is
I'm
just
asking.
giving them an opportunity.
Because you remember the problem with even trying to do a bank drive-through, and that's very limited, and that was not allowed. So where is the line? What is the criteria? Because if I have Mike's Burgers and everybody has to have a Mike Burger and there's 40 cars a day, you can't make it happen. But if I got 2 people coming to a bank drive-through, it can.
So is there criteria for the number of cars that can be?
There's
held in
stacking
line?
requirements, yes,
Stacking?
yes.
And
That'll all be reviewed during the site plan process.
But what is that criteria? Because what is that line, and how is that enforced?
It's currently 7, I believe, that you have to design for, 7 cars in stacking. And that's reviewed as part of the site plan, along with Public Works, making sure there's circulation, and that if you get in line and you change your mind, you have to be able to get out. So all of that would be reviewed during the site plan process.
So Mary Beth, could you explain to us to drive up and drive through?
So we call drive-through facilities a
Same
bank,
thing.
a McDonald's, yeah. The drive up, I have seen it, and I don't know that we use it in our ordinance, is a Sonic, where
I
you
was gonna say
come
they
and you
have one.
park, and so you're
But those are
driving
parking
up and they're
spaces.
coming, yeah.
So why are we limited as this here to Lusby Town Center only? Why wouldn't you make it consistent throughout the town centers and just say if you're adding it for one, then
So drive-through facilities are permitted in many of the town centers, not all of the sub-areas. And we just recognized this morning that it's not permitted in Dunkirk, which I think was an oversight because they have drive-throughs today. So we'll fix that. But we will go back and look at, make sure that we're covering all of the commercial core areas of the town centers to make sure they're allowed to have drive-throughs, because that was the intent.
So Mary Beth, if I had Mike's Fast Food Burgers and I came to you today, what would keep you from giving me my drive-through?
If your parcel was not big enough to stack 7 cars, in addition to providing all of the parking and the circulation requirements of the ordinance, we could deny the application.
Then I don't even
Because
know
they-
that you would have a facility.
Because they can't anticipate
Right.
40 people want
That's
Mike's
what I mean.
Burgers.
Right.
And I don't know that you have I don't know that you have a parcel in Lusby that could hold that.
It's possible. Was this a request? I'm wondering, because, or
Like I
maybe
say,
we
and the
just
only reason I'm
identified.
stuck on this point is because I thought it was silly before I had this job. I didn't understand just from the cheap seats what the impacts are, and I didn't know how many meetings there were on this. And even the previous Board of County Commissioners met on that. And so that's why I just have caution here.
So
because-
Chick-fil-A has dual lines because they know they're going to stack up more than 7 cars.
Yes,
We didn't require that. They did that on their own.
that's correct.
McDonald's has a really long drive-through in 2 lanes. We didn't require that. They did that on their own.
That's
I think that some of this, Mike, has just got to be on the business, understanding what they're.
And
Not-
right, and,
in the
and you
site
just
plan.
know my
Yeah.
lack of confidence of like, hey, if we just get it up there and then just seeing so many times after we do, well then that's your problem. And if you look, you got the Parkway to back to, and then you have HG to back to, and that is it. And that's a shopping center with a, so that's the only reason I'm asking. I don't even know how it's physically possible.
They
But you're
would have-
saying they would have to prove, so it's not a green light. They would have to
No.
prove that this business model would not impact that, and who would they have to prove that to?
That would be to all of the agencies that review it, including State Highway, because they couldn't back up their traffic onto a state highway, Public Works for the circulation on site, and Planning and Zoning to make sure that the stacking and the parking is addressed.
Would this go out to the planning commission?
It would, yes.
Would the commissioners have veto power on that? Because a lot of times we don't.
No, sir.
Not once it's written in.
It would go to the Planning Commission and internal agency review. No site plans come before the Board of County Commissioners.
The planning commission's only there to make sure they're following the rules, not to.
Right, but if there is a philosophical difference of what, the board would perceive it to be and not,
It's what's written in the rules.
And maybe it's a separate discussion. I see you're looking at me, John, so keep me on the straight. If we disagree with the planning commission thing, that we don't, if the Board of County Commissioners doesn't believe that it is to the letter of that law, do we have any say whatsoever? Because I was always told, planning commission is legal and compliant, end of story.
Right, if it meets the
But
regulations.
if we believe it's not satisfying county code, what do we have? Anything?
Change. John Norris, County Attorney, you have the opportunity to change the law.
Right, but at that point, the decision's already been made.
Yeah, that's,
And that's why I get worried when things are up to perception, because sometimes people think it's, well, what their opinion is. And no, I'm very strict on, is it legal and compliant? And if you've got Public Works saying, I don't know how it's gonna make that work, but I can't technically say that it's against code, but you know what I mean? So then now it goes there.
So for an extra level of security, we could add the Board of Appeals, make it a special exception.
I would be
instead
good
of-
with that.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, I would be good because that's,
except a special exception, if I could. Special exception is like hitting a triple in baseball. Special exception is approved only so long as it doesn't impose a unique impediment or burden on the area in which it's located. So special exceptions are not tests. They're to make sure that you're not unintentionally hurting a particular site because of where it's located in county.
and I agree with that, but that Board of Appeals, could we force it to go to the Board of Appeals?
No, sir.
No.
See-
Well, yes, by
Through the
making it a
special
special exception, it's required to go to the Board of Appeals in order to have this use in that district.
But it's gotta be in here. We just can't do that arbitrarily.
Right.
Okay, but
It
I
would-
would be more comfortable if that verbiage was in there.
You
Okay?
just want another layer.
Yeah, another layer, exactly, yes, sir, right.
So that's gotta be in here.
Because I don't
Yes.
think it can happen, period, but hey, I didn't think a lot of things could happen, I mean, my God. So if you'd have told me years ago some of the stuff I seen, I'd say you're from Mars. But, that community is extremely creative, extremely creative.
But that is why we have the site plan review process, and we have all of these agencies that look at these plans. I mean, their job is to make sure that those plans, that they don't take them forward to be reviewed by the planning commission unless they meet all of our criteria in the ordinance.
Right, but if your criteria is antiquated, and you know how slow we move, I mean, so you could, have something that's on the books. I mean, look how long it took us to get the APFO updated.
And this is mainly for new construction. It would be kinda hard to redevelop a site.
But in order for a site to redevelop, they would have to go to the Board of Appeals.
Right.
So we have concurrence to change that to a special exception?
Sure.
Everyone's okay with that? Okay, thank you.
And for the most part, Mike, the businesses wanna make sure they can handle the flow, because as a consumer, you don't wanna be parked out on the road with 30 cars in front of you, so.
And they want to get them in and
Personally, I'm
out.
gonna pull out of line and go someplace else. So they're, in your business model, you anticipate and you wanna make sure you accommodate your customer base, but I understand where you're coming from there.
Yeah, like the Solomon's McDonald's, I mean, that's laid out perfectly. Because I see that thing get busy and it can handle it the way it wraps.
Chick-fil-A
Yeah.
does good.
So when it's done right,
Yes.
and it's done by the way of the intent, everything's perfect, but,
But in
there's al-
those cases, they were done by the private businesses. They
Well,
weren't done to
and-
meet anything we.
And their ultimate goal is efficiency. I mean, so they're going to do it the right way
So you'd hope. Yeah.
to benefit them anyhow.
Yes.
All right, I think we are ready to move on to the next slide. Accessory structures and uses. This article has been revised to increase the threshold for when a building permit is required for an accessory structure from 150 feet to 200 feet. And for the keeping of chickens and poultry, conditions for non-farm properties under 3 acres in size, such as limits on the number of chickens allowed, the prohibition on keeping roosters, peacocks, and guinea fowl, and the prohibition on the slaughtering of poultry on the site have been removed.
And just to be clear on this, Will, for a critical area, for a building permit structure over?
Correct, critical area, you need a permit for anything.
Thank you.
So that change only applies outside of the critical area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And people are still gonna squawk that they need one for 200 square feet, but on a small lot, 200 square feet can be a lot.
It can, and that is the maximum permitted by the state building code. We've adopted
Right.
150 in our local building code. We're going to revise that once this is adopted.
And moving on to Article 21, Natural Resources, the NRPA 1, which includes stronger protective buffers from sensitive environmental features, now applies to environmental features on parcels, lots, outlots, residue, and open space created following the adoption of the updated zoning ordinance, both inside and outside of town centers. And in the May 2023 draft, the NRPA 1 only applied outside of town centers.
So those buffers are already laid out and required. It's not anything we're adding on extra.
So it was something that came up during the work session. Why aren't we applying the same in the town center? So that's why the change was made.
Right. Just trying to be consistent.
Marine and water-dependent facilities, Section 23-2 has been revised to allow for encroachments on the harbor line through approval of a variance by the Board of Appeals. And for private piers, the limit on the number of slips permitted has been raised from 2 to 4. Currently, 2 slips are permitted, and an additional 2 are allowed with special exception approval from the Board of Appeals.
As long as those are within property lines, correct?
Correct. There will still be a review for the
So
lateral
nothing's
lines.
changed as far as
Correct,
boundaries go.
yes.
And that's when you're bringing your boat in, right? You're talking about those lateral lines, is that what,
So the slips are where you would actually physically park a boat or a jet ski. They get an MDE permit
Right.
first, and MDE allows 4. And then they come to the county, and we only allow 2. So we're changing it to be
Oh.
consistent with the Maryland Department of
Gotcha.
Environment.
gotcha.
Okay, and the encroachment on the harbor line, can you just talk about that and what that is for the public?
So right now, you can't encroach on a harbor line, and our harbor lines are really out of date. And we don't have the capability of going through and changing them all. So we've had some requests come forward where, for reasons of shallow water,
Yes.
people want to extend their pier.
It's the length of a pier to get
Right.
the water to
Right.
handle your boat.
Right, I just
So-
want to put it out there so
Yeah.
people know what we're
Yes,
talking
we've
about.
written the criteria in there so that this gives them a way to get what they need to do through the Board of Appeals.
Just for a pier,
Yes,
mostly.
yes.
And going from 2 to 4 piers, we have guidelines in place as to, in allowing that. And I would imagine, like Commissioner Ireland said, it would be within property lines. Anything else that would be expected, just so it's within your property boundaries, you can have 4? Do we look at anything else?
There are setbacks from the lateral lines, which are pretty much the extension of the property line with some exceptions. Yeah, I mean, if you meet that, and,
Okay.
yeah, then you would be going to the Board of Appeals for a special exception, but, or you do today. We're eliminating that so that you could get 4 without having to go to the Board of
Okay.
Appeals.
And moving on to Article 25, Subdevelopment and Design Standards. The provisions which allowed for planned unit developments have been removed from the August draft. And the maximum height permitted in the I-2 heavy industrial district has been increased to 75 feet with the condition that the building be set back a distance double the height of the building from all property lines except for adjacent properties under common ownership. And in the current ordinance, the maximum height permitted in industrial districts is 50 feet.
So Will, could you go back to the first sentence there and explain the planned unit development?
So a planned unit development, I think, is sort of did we describe it as a mini zoning ordinance within?
It's a tool to be able to have flexibility to not come under the strict guidance of the Calvert County zoning ordinance. So it would be an agreement, basically, that gets drawn up, a design agreement that gets reviewed by the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners through a public hearing to provide flexibility in their design to not meet the letter of the law of the zoning ordinance. And provide some public benefit.
Or you could require more
Yes,
restrictions,
yes.
buffers, more environmental improvements. It's not necessarily
Could go either way.
to relax. It can
Right.
go either way.
Just flexibility so that you could,
And where we can talk to the developer and we also get public input on
Correct.
that development, correct?
yes.
So if we were to take the residential side out of that and come up with some kind of language that would provide economic opportunities for commercial and industrial developments only, is that feasible?
Yes, we could write the requirements for design being able to go through the plan unit development process or whatever we decide to call it for commercial and industrial. And I would add institutional, just non-residential. Yes, we could do that.
Because the issue that we hear most about citizens is, traffic, and there's enough people here already. If we don't do things to increase our tax revenue base, people are not going to be able to afford to live here. And so I think what we're trying to do is just figure out a process to attract economic benefits to this community. I think that's the intention here.
Some
in
type
this
of plan
discussion.
moving forward?
The only thing I want to caution though is that you just said you put all the, to where there's a vehicle here where you now bypass all the county codes, all the restrictions. When I sit back and think, I don't know what we would need to relax. I'm sure maybe there's something out there, but like if, let's say I had a store that was 60,000 square feet and now I need 260,000 square feet. Well, that PUD allows that.
It allows it to be proposed to go through a very public process where the commissioners and the planning commission get to weigh in and say, okay, well, if you're going to design it like this, maybe we want some more screening. Maybe we need you to plant some more trees, do extended stormwater management.
Maybe we need a longer buffer.
Right.
And I hear you. That is one option. A board could also say, I always wanted that 260,000 square foot place. Public input wouldn't matter, and the planning commission would be left with, is it legal and compliant? So, a future board could get that ball rolling.
But we've talked before, a future board can do anything.
Can do anything it wants, correct.
Anything it wants.
So I want to be very specific on the language now. I mean, like I say, it's the power of three, but I just want to be very specific on what I vote to. That number one, there's no residential piece that's up for grabs, and that I want to just really understand why, because I'm pretty happy with what we've done on a lot of, reducing down to 4 and things of that nature. I mean, to get some common sense back in it, because we're not creating any more roads. So the infrastructure is the infrastructure, and nobody wants to say it. Water bills are out there now, and nobody's liking the water bills because of the cost that it is to do this stuff, right? Grinder pumps, maintenance, all this kind of stuff, right? The more and more pull on the system and the more and more thing, everybody ends up paying that bill some way or another. I've yet to see, we have some businesses, yes, that pay their share plus, but we have some that don't. And I want to be very careful, because we're not creating any more roads. And, Pat Nutter used to say all the time, unintended consequences. What you don't see. So, when I don't like the word relaxed, or you know what I mean? I just want to make sure we are not circumventing the process to where a board can say, well, the planning commission did it, I'm out of there, because they weren't elected. We were.
What would that process look like? You mentioned
Yeah,
the
please,
process.
yes.
Can you go through that?
So the developer would propose, and I think we had even written into the original language that they would have local meetings to talk about the changes they wanted to make, draft up what they wanted, the language they wanted to propose, and then it would go through the 2 public hearings. I mean, we could add work sessions with the commissioners and the planning commission to have discussions about it. I mean, really.
Before approval.
Before approval,
Before
yes.
approval.
Yes,
But the
So,
ultimate approval would come down to us.
yes. It would be a recommendation from the planning commission, ultimate approval by the
To us,
commissioners.
yes.
yeah, I wouldn't want where a board does it and then the public hearing is a perception that your input matters, you know, because don't. You know, the previous boards took a big beating on the LNG facility, but that had to go through the federal government, state, and everything else, and by the time it got down to the public hearings, they were really informational.
And
So-
where would we be without it?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm not disputing the contribution, I'm just saying the process. So, that board could alleviate a lot of headaches if, you know, everybody, you know, because I was there. I was there when those meetings where it came out, the decision was done. They were just informational. So anything going forward, I just believe that that community input has got to be there. And because either way, I mean, you're not avoiding that problem. So you just do it. You know what I mean? If you have community support, it's going to be so much easier. Just be upfront, be complete transparent. Hey,
But
this
every-
is why we're doing it.
Every project's gonna have opposition.
Absolutely, and you're not going to please everybody, but at least
So I don't want
if-
anybody to think that you're proposing that it's gotta be 100% approval.
No. But what I mean is I want the community to have that opportunity long before it's approved to say, and then if you don't come out and speak, well, but you know, have plenty of opportunity, because a lot of times citizens know stuff we just don't. You know, they might, you know, bring something up or whatever, but it's just another tool. And if at least, like I say, not gonna please everybody, but at least if you have, for the most part, community support.
But the process starts here.
Correct.
With what goes in the ordinance and the regulations. And
But I want that tool, my 20% anyway, that a board just can't go,
you
hey,
have to justify to the public why they're doing what
yes,
they're doing.
why we're doing what we're doing.
And unlike the process now, where we don't play that role, this gives us an opportunity in the process.
I agree with that.
Mary, oh, I'm sorry.
Mary Beth, if we were to say to provide economic opportunities for commercial and industrial development only, within that sentence, we would have setbacks, buffers, noise control, environmental studies, all of that. And we would bring it, you know, for public review, so on and so forth. So we would, first of all, I must say, I am totally opposed to high-density housing. And I maintain that. But in a county where you have 90-some thousand individuals on the lower side, we have to start looking at more economic opportunities for the county, because we're not going to get it with building residential. So we have to start exploring what we can do as a county to bring revenue in. And, but yet, like Commissioner Hart said, yes, we want the public's input, but behind that sentence, we will have strict parameters before we would even consider bringing it to the public. The public, am I correct?
Yes, so they would have to
Okay.
meet every single requirement of the zoning ordinance and present to the commissioners and the planning commission those items that they want some flexibility on and what they are willing to do for public benefit, for increasing buffers, or the proposal would have to be a balance.
Sure.
Could
Yes.
they bypass the APFO?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right, so as Commissioner Grasso was just talking, and you mentioned, when I first brought it up, adding institutional, what are you thinking about institutional?
So I'm
Can you
thinking
throw that out there?
colleges, schools, I mean, we don't review necessarily zoning for, if it has state funding, but I want to cover everything that we may not have thought of.
Is everybody in
So-
agreement with that?
I think so.
Oh,
Okay.
sure, yeah,
All right.
definitely.
So Mary Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, so this tool, we're putting in our toolbox, a developer can come to us with a preliminary plan. We go to the public, get the public input before he puts many, many dollars to the end of this project.
Yes, this would be at the beginning.
And we can critique it as we go along.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I still like community benefit agreement better than plan.
We'll call it whatever you'd like, Commissioners.
I'm with President Hance on that.
Community
look, I mean,
benefit agreement.
Any
Got it.
board can do anything,
Correct.
but this board has certainly proven that we are opposed to high density and increasing
Correct.
density, and that any economic benefit we would bring here, we're not gonna do that unless there is a benefit to the community.
And that's, and I know we've lost confidence out there.
Because of
and I
what's
get it.
happened in the past.
Right, just be full transparent, we have lost confidence.
And that can happen again.
Yes, and
With another
and
board.
full transparency, those guys are good. And they have taken a document that's old as dirt, because it does take so long to get through this process, you know, and learn how to beat it. Just plain simple, learn how to beat it, argue it, want to take it to court, do whatever. So just try not to make those mistakes again, and I like that tool with the community. Hey, here it is.
And I know
Let's
that
talk
when
about
you
it.
say relaxing something, it sends shockwaves through certain
Yes.
people's heads. But it could be as much as I need 76 feet instead of 75.
Right.
It could be, you know, very minimal relax. I don't think any board is gonna sit here and relax, make tremendous relaxing of rules. If they don't, they're not gonna make it through another election.
No, but the damage could it make, but you're
I
correct.
understand that, but, you know, at some point in time, you have to have the ability, I think.
Well, and topography may force you into that. I mean, look, where we got hills and valleys, I mean, so.
And there's a way to counteract that.
Right, so, but, and so I understand that. I understand you're trying to do something and you got a slope that's something and you truly are not harming any environmental thing, what have you, and you need something that's not as stringent. I get that. I have just seen it go the other way where, hey, there's all these cars, you need a traffic light. Well, don't say it, so if it don't say it, I'm not doing a traffic light. Or some other safety measure.
But at some point, you can't be scared to make a decision concerned about what'll happen.
I agree, or we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have a nuclear facility.
Exactly. We might
Correct.
as
We
well
wouldn't
be
have the best
done.
schools and, right.
We'd be done.
Correct.
Before I had to leave the room, I heard Commissioner Cox talking about not having developers, individuals, and when we say developers, don't freak out. This is not residential, but not have a lot of money invested before there is input from the public. And I just wanted to reiterate, I would really, really like to see public input at the beginning as opposed to the end. I just think that is
Absolutely.
counterproductive.
Absolutely.
It's counterproductive for the people who want to invest, and it's counterproductive for the people that we work for.
Correct.
And we would want to get this agreement in place and approved before they spend a significant amount of money.
Absolutely.
And I think they would want that reassurance as well.
So you don't need a motion, you just need direction, correct?
Just direction, we're going to
what to
develop
call
a
it. And you got
community
direction.
benefit agreement.
A new acronym.
Pud rhymes with Doug. Just saying. We don't need duds.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments before we move on to the next slide?
You know what we're trying to do, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sounds like it.
And you'll get us the draft.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to parking. And the following provision has been added to the August draft. Upon written application, the zoning officer may reduce the minimum parking requirements of this article if the applicant demonstrates that the facility to be served would not require in its day-to-day operation a full complement of parking. The application shall be accompanied by a parking needs study that includes an estimate of the parking needs for the use, a thorough explanation of the basis for the estimate, any data used in calculating the estimate, including parking generation studies and previous experience with similar uses, and an explanation of any other relevant considerations such as availability of commercial or public parking areas. And this replaces the following provision, which has been removed from the draft. The parking requirements for non-residential uses may be reduced up to 15%, which can currently be obtained through approval of an administrative variance,
So we're trying to eliminate a blacktop desert.
ideally.
Yes.
And provisions that would have required the installation of electric vehicle charging stations and parking facilities that require 50 or more spaces have been removed and replaced with the current policy, which is an incentive to reduce the number of parking spaces by 2 spaces if electric vehicle charging stations are installed in parking facilities that require 50 or more spaces. And this next slide isn't addressing a revision that's been made to the August 2024 draft, but we've included it because of interest in this topic. So in the current zoning ordinance, minimum parking requirements for attached dwellings, which include duplex, triplex, fourplex, multifamily, and townhomes, are 1.5 spaces per 1-bedroom dwelling units, 2 spaces per dwelling unit with 2 bedrooms, 3 spaces per dwelling unit with 3 or greater bedrooms. And in the May 2023 draft, this was simplified to 2 spaces per dwelling unit across the board. And both currently and in the draft zoning ordinance, a minimum of an additional 25% of the total number of required spaces provided for the attached dwelling units shall be provided for guests and overflow parking. Such parking shall be provided as a separate parking area located within a quarter mile from the furthest units within the development.
So there is a requirement for visitor parking of 25% of the total?
Yes.
Right. So, go ahead, I'm sorry, Ronnie.
No, so we only bring this up because, and we've raised it from 1.5 to 2.
Well, just to be clear, that's 1.5 spaces per one, for a dwelling unit with 1 bedroom. It's 2 spaces for a dwelling unit with 2, 3 spaces for a dwelling unit for 3. So it's simplified.
It's a compromise,
Right.
but to hopefully simplify the calculations.
I think all the surveys I've seen have shown that in this county, we own lots of vehicles. And I guess what has informed me is my daughter lives in a townhouse community here in Prince Frederick. And her neighbors changed within the past year, and all of a sudden, there's no visitor parking left. Because you have work vehicles, every person in there has a driver's license, has a car. I think the last survey I showed in Calvert County, we averaged 4 vehicles per household.
It's something like that, I think.
So I'm glad we went from 1.5 to 2.
So,
I'm just not sure that's enough.
if you, I was sitting here playing with it, and if you do the math and you put 3 per dwelling unit, that comes out to exactly the same as your 25%. So if you just said 3, that whole bottom paragraph could be eliminated, I believe, with the exception of the quarter mile. Would you have the 3 have to be within the quarter mile? For example, if you have 40 units, you had 120 spaces at if 3 are mandated. If you have 40 units and 2 are mandated, you're at 80. And then you add 25%, you're at 40. I mean, you're right back there. So you're at 120.
I'll trust you on the math.
So can they achieve that? Can they achieve that either or?
No. You have a parking requirement for the units, and then you have to provide 25%.
25 max, okay.
Yes.
I guess we can't require them to,
So
you can't require them for so many, but, the examples that we've seen is, if you drive through these apartment complexes and towns, there are cars everywhere. And work vehicles. And you see them, they even use the shopping centers. They'll park their vehicles in the shopping center, in the morning they come out and switch vehicles.
I see when I go grocery shopping all the time.
And I know we can't accommodate, it's like the drive-throughs, you can't have a rule to accommodate everything, but at least we've increased it some to help out.
For us, now with just the 2 of us, we each have our own car and we'll never be without a pickup. So we've got our pickup too.
We got 3 vehicles and there's just 2 of us.
And a big tractor.
My son has 4 vehicles and there's just 2 of them.
Yeah.
Tractor
That's where
takes
we're
up
at.
two.
Well, we live on a farm, so we have plenty of parking
Correct.
spaces, but
I've seen that tractor.
it's just that, I wanted to make sure we at least increased it from what it was.
We could also propose to increase the guest parking percentage.
So is that done anywhere in the county currently with a quarter of it being off-site?
No, it's still on-site. The parking still has to be
Within a quarter mile?
But
of
it's
the
gotta be
units.
on-site.
Gotta be on their property.
On-site, yes,
And that is 25% currently.
yes. That's the current policy.
Yeah. So I don't know what more we can do. It's just,
Just make sure we have adequate parking.
yeah, trying to do our best. 'Cause, look, well, I saw a development one time, a developer proposed, and you couldn't even fit a fire truck down the road because he was trying to cram more houses in there and reduce parking spaces. Because nobody uses their garages. They count their garages as parking spaces, but if you ride through
They make it a
these,
shed.
these townhouse complexes and they got the door open, it ain't a parking space, it's just a storage shed. So that space now has gone on the street, and I don't know. Because there is, what is your rule about garages and street parking and?
I was just going to point out, we don't allow garages to be counted as a parking space
Oh, thank
for
God.
townhomes.
Good. Yeah, because they're all full of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Christmas trees in there.
We did make a change in the ordinance to allow that for single-family detached, but not for townhomes.
If I ever built another house, I'd have to make my basement bigger than the house, because the basement is full of stuff, so.
Well, and a lot of these parking issues too, I believe, particularly in some communities, are you've got multifamilies living in a residence, whereas it wasn't that case
Yeah.
before,
Yeah,
so.
that's true too.
Yes. And that's what happened to my daughter. The townhouse beside her sold. Now there's 2 or 3 families living in a townhouse. So now they've got 6 cars.
Mercy.
So, and there is zoning against that, isn't it? How many families are allowed in a dwelling?
We don't regulate that.
We don't.
I thought
do
it was
not.
one. I thought you
did.
couldn't have 2 in there.
No, sir.
So you have 5 families in one house?
Yes, sir.
Huh. I don't know how you'd enforce it, but that would be the hard part. Huh, I thought we did. Okay,
There's nothing,
don't open up another hornet's
Yeah.
nest.
That's another meeting.
yeah, but that's not for the zoning ordinance, so we're good on that. Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, thank you.
No, one more.
Okay, last slide. Article 29 signs. The provisions addressing electronic message centers have been revised to allow places of worship with reader boards in existence as of the adoption of the updated zoning ordinance to replace those reader boards with electronic message centers in any district.
So you already have to have one. It's not allowing new installations.
If you got a reader board, you can replace it with an
Right.
in-kind EMC.
And the technology has changed and easier.
Okay,
Okay.
that concludes our presentation. If there's any further discussion that the commissioners would like to open up, they're free to do that. Just want to point out that, like we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that December 9th date for the public hearing with the BFCC, it sounds like that's going to be changed to the 17th of December. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
We have some scheduling conflicts.
That's good.
And we can adopt it that night, right?
Yes, sir. It would not become effective before 10 days after the hearing.
Because we've been doing this now for months, and the public's had numerous opportunities to weigh in. They're still gonna have an opportunity now
Yes,
to weigh in.
at the public hearing.
And even submit writing to you all still, correct?
Absolute, up to the date of the
If
hearing.
anything they heard today,
Yes,
can still
they
write
can
in.
submit comments, and we'll include those comments in your public hearing package.
and on average, how many people showed up to those public meetings for this?
We started out with large groups and dwindled down to 1, 2, maybe 3 people.
It was typically 3 people for the vast majority of those public forums.
And I mean, that's you know, we have this current project going on, people are all crazy about, and I've reminded them, this is where that all happens.
This is the start.
And once you set the rules, you can't just stop. I mean,
You have to go through.
now's when people need to get engaged, and we've tried to do our part to address their concerns, but.
Well, when we started, we were very cognizant of the fact that we wanted public input, and we know with spacing our meetings and so on and so forth, so we really did make a good effort. And when we started, you know how slow government moves, and I was like, oh my God, we'll never get this done by the first of the year. Planning and zoning has done a wonderful job. You all have been transparent, you've talked to us behind the scenes, you've talked to us here. Thank you all so much. I know this was a tremendous job for all of you, and you're bringing it in on time, so that's great.
It's a long road.
Keep the
Long
wheels
road.
on the bus, you're almost there.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and in addition to Will and Rachel, who have done the lion's share of the work, they have pulled in staff from all over the county
Wonderful.
government to make sure that that they're in agreement with Public Works and soil conservation, and so they've gone out and done countless presentations. They have another one coming up to Realtor soon, so they've really done a great job.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
Mr. President, if you please excuse me, I have an appointment I have to go to, seriously, so,
No, you can't go.
I know, so, thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is, we have some friends from Mako. Morning.
How are you, sir?
Morning.
How's it going? Good.
Welcome to Calvert County.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much.
You're going to the same areas after you leave here? That's the normal plan.
Thanks.
The executive drove a long way. You want to get your bang for your buck while you're there.
We sure are. Well, thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to be with you. For the record, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski, proud to be the president of the Maryland Association of Counties this year, and thank you so much for hosting us. I'm joined by my colleague and partner in this work, Executive Director Michael Sanderson. I first just want to thank Calvert County for your participation and your involvement. In particular, Commissioner Grasso, thank you for your work on the Legislative Committee. We thank you for your involvement, but Mako is only as strong as our member counties, and so we're grateful that you all are such active members. We're proud of the ways in which that we are coming together as large and small jurisdictions, urban, rural, suburban, and finding that regardless of party, regardless of size, regardless of our geography, we're really facing a lot of the same issues in local government. That's been true of our visits throughout this year, whether it's tackling how we pay for things like the requirements under Maryland's blueprint, or struggling with the cuts to highway user revenue, finding challenges around finding more housing. And I know you guys just had a robust conversation here. Solar siting, adult use cannabis, the issues are consistent, and so that's the good news. There certainly are no shortage of challenges, but we're grateful to have such partnership. Michael's going to give a rundown of sort of a look back of the past year, a look ahead too as well, and then any questions you have, but also certainly welcome to hear some of the great work you all are doing too, so we take that back to staff and inform the work ahead. So again, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity today. I'm Michael Sanderson, Director of the Maryland Association of Counties. For the teeming millions of viewers, MACO is an organization that represents and serves the county governments across the state. We try and do educate and best practices and so forth across our jurisdictions with conferences and events and member education. We also try and serve as a voice on behalf of all those local services that reach every Marylander, and do so before the General Assembly and state agencies and that sort of stuff. So in that vein, I want to speak, we've given you a packet of stuff. I don't plan to go through that in a whole lot of detail, but I'll use it as a springboard to look back on a couple things from this last legislative session, and we're getting close enough the next year to be looking forward. So I'll spend some time on that, and if there's something that I miss or you want to talk about further, I'd love to hear from you on what you'd like to focus on. So On the one pager, a real quick snapshot of the breadth of work that MACO does on behalf of counties. I don't think anybody has as big of a portfolio as county governments do. Maryland just relies on counties to deliver so many of the most important functions that reach our residents. So we're really central on the implementation side of an awful lot of policy that happens at the state level. I want to talk about a couple of policy issues and then work my way towards fiscal stuff, which has been sort of the sort of big elephant in the room for a lot of these conversations. So I'll wind my way there. Housing is a housing shortage. We roll out this conversation at every jurisdiction, large and small. Even though it looks a little different place by place, we have yet to come to one county who says, we don't have any problem at all here. There's no issue. The housing market's peculiar in a lot of ways. There's a lot of moving parts here. High interest rates is part of it, and new players who are buying and speculating in what used to be mostly owner-occupied neighborhoods and so forth. It's just a number of dimensions that are there. This last legislative session, we knew the governor was interested in wading in and trying to create some fast tracks for particularly achievable and affordable housing opportunities. Sometimes MACO representing local governments, our first instinct is resist. These should be local decisions. We made a tack to get it at the table and try and focus on areas where we could agree and collaborate rather than just putting up the fences. That was a tactical decision that I think worked well for us. What ended up passing, the central bill, focused on some narrow channels of projects to try and accelerate it and green tape some things. Projects where the state is putting in low-income housing funds, projects that are close to train stations, transit-oriented development, a couple other things, repurposed state property to go from public use to housing stock. There's a variety of relatively narrow channels. Things that came out of the discussion and eventually came out of the bill were things like overriding local adequate public facilities laws, other things that we've used as growth management tools, frequently with cheers and encouragement from the state, to try and make sure that the infrastructure is there where we're going to have growth and new housing and development and so forth. That's part and parcel of what you all do all the time, working on the ground in local government. So I don't think that debate is over. I don't think the challenge in the housing market is behind us. So it's going to continue to be a live issue. I don't know whether it'll have quite the same fanfare and sort of top-line matter that it was this last year, but we'll stay active on these issues, and I know your colleagues in other jurisdictions are doing the same. Another development issue I'll speak to is the siting of clean energy, particularly solar facilities. Last couple times I think we've visited, this is a topic that's just going to be with us for some stretch of time. Maryland has an aggressive plan for energy providers to have clean energy in their portfolio. And each year the standards go up for clean energy overall and for solar in particular. There's only so far that you can transport the electrons from a solar device. We can't get the solar we need from Montana or Illinois. It's got to come pretty close by. It's going to be pressure within the service areas across the state, the SMECO and the Choptank and BGE and PEPCO service areas. We know that that's a local pressure. We're seeing it in almost every part of the state that has an agricultural community. Low-lying flatlands that are good for soybeans are also great for silicon. And it's way cheaper to build on the ground at cheap land than it is to go to the built-up areas, some of the places that would make conceptually great places to do, the old brownfield site where there's industrial contamination, you can't really build and you can't really grow and you can't put a park.
Silicon is hard to chew.
It's not good for you.
I'm going to tuck that away. So, as a practical matter, solar's going to be with us for a while. We have been trying to collaborate with a number of stakeholders. There's a lot of pressure on this issue in Annapolis. I'm surprised we didn't see a bill to move even further the line between what local governments have some say in versus what is exclusively a state decision-making. The courts basically said big projects, real big projects, are treated like a power plant, basically building on laws that were back in the 60s and 70s built for a large power plant, which ended up somewhere in our state. But the line between what is exclusively a PSC decision for capacity versus a local decision for siting and setbacks and buffers and things like that, that line is going to be under attack. So we're in the midst of trying to work towards some middle ground on that front to provide some more leverage. Once you have solar development, you get some dollars on the side that might be able to go toward buying easements or do some preservation of your other prime farmland areas and so forth. We get the moving parties here. It's just, it's a challenging issue that, again, is going to be with us for some time. And as those state standards continue to escalate, the pressure is just going to get hotter. Those frogs are going to feel the boil pretty soon. I'll mention one more specific issue, mostly because I think I was before you about a year ago saying the state implementing law for adult use cannabis. After the voters said they wanted it, the state had to pass an implementing law, and I think I was here at this table last year saying the state had given us literally all of 2 words on guidance if you wanted to have a map of where the dispensaries could go for adult use sales, not the converted medical ones, but the next wave that are coming. The state had told us last year reasonable zoning. That's literally what the state law said. No one knows what that phrase means. Even zoning lawyers don't know what that phrase means. Now we've got like a page of new text. It's not great, but it does say if you want to set up a new law that gives buffers from one site to another, or stay away from churches or schools or other things like that, we've got some guidance saying you can do 500 feet here or 1,000 feet here, and that'll be fine. So the state law saying that some things are okay is a lot clearer. It's clearer ground to walk on. The ice is a little bit thicker there if you wanted to pass a local ordinance like that. A variety of other things I could get into. I'll skip most of that. If I miss something that's important to you all or you want to focus on, ask me some questions. But I'll spend a minute on the big picture of fiscal stuff, because this is the biggest issue I think that faces all of our jurisdictions. I'll start with the state budget and try and do a little bit of arithmetic to land at how quirky a spot we're in. State's general fund budget is about $25 billion. They've got various special funds and so forth. It gets a little tricky, but the general fund budget, $25 billion. In an ordinary economy, set aside the last 2 or 3 or 4 years that have been really weird in a variety of ways, but for most of the last 20 years, you would expect the cost of living to be something like 2 or 3%, inflation 2 or 3% thereabouts. And on a $25 billion budget, if the cost of living is 3% or so, then when someone goes buys a pair of shoes, they pay sales tax, that turns into a little bit more sales tax money. People get a little bit of a raise or something like that. That turns into more income tax money. State revenues you would think would grow by that, plus maybe a tiny bump for population or productivity. Typical growth would be maybe like 4% in revenues. You don't have to be an expert to kind of follow that math. $25 billion budget, you should have about $1 billion in new revenues under ordinary circumstances. Well, is our current economy strong or weak? The easiest indicator you used to be able to look at was the unemployment rate. It's a real nice, quick measure of if unemployment's 5, 6, 7% kind of high, that means a sluggish economy. The factory laid off the second shift or other quick back of the thumbnail sort of thing. So, Maryland's economy, like our unemployment rate is at or below 3%, which textbooks say you shouldn't be able to maintain. That should be an indicator of a robust economy. Like we should be growing like crazy. And instead of having 4% growth or 5% growth in state revenues, which you would think with those ingredients, they just closed the book on last year, and they're projecting for 24 into this year, 25, 1% growth, and into 26 with even less than 1% growth. And that's with the best bean counters in the game on contract advising. That's what the underlying pieces of the Maryland economy look like. Income tax in particular, really sluggish. So that's just a weird circumstance that we're in. A lot of the indicators suggest a strong economy. Consumer optimism and confidence is not strong. So it's a weird circumstance. What that leads us to is the state's sitting on a $700-800 million structural shortfall. You can basically explain it by saying instead of having $1 billion in new revenue, they got $250, and there's a $700 million problem right there. Cost drivers on continuing to maintain and keep your employees and continue to build a building or patch over a road or whatever. All those things are exacerbating. So the state's got a fiscal circumstance. The several $100 million flavor is one that Annapolis sometimes can manage without it being an absolute nightmare. But after a couple of years of a big but manageable problem, they run out of money in the trust fund that they're using to pay for their share of the blueprint, the big education plan that we're 3 years or so into the rollout for. And then they got to start paying cash for that to the tune of another $2 billion or so per year. So the state's problem goes from being difficult but manageable to like basically unmanageable just a few years down the road. Does that mean they get a handle on it now and take some tough decisions? I mean, there's only so many places to go. You want to solve $1 billion or $2 or $3 billion problem in the state's general fund budget, you look at the blueprint and you say, are there pieces we can push back or timetables we can change or intermediate deliverables or that sort of thing? Governor hinted that maybe that sort of stuff is on the table, but there doesn't seem to be unanimity with legislative leaders to do that. Do you go into the state budget and say, okay, we've negotiated a raise for the state employees and we've got these services we want to do in our jails and environmental department and so forth? You want to just say, we'll contract all that sort of stuff? Or do you find the revenues to live up to the promises that you've made? Now, any of those are going to disappoint somebody and be frustrating to some constituency. Those are tough decisions. The later in the 4-year political cycle, the harder it is to make really tough, anger people type decisions. So we're in a tough spot to predict what Annapolis has next. What I will say is it's this environment when they need to find $6 or $8 or $10, $100 million, when they start looking under couch cushions and, oh, well, we'll change the actuarial assumptions in some benefit program, and boy, there's $180 million of one-time money. That's the kind of stuff Annapolis sometimes can pull rabbits out of the hat. Sometimes those rabbits actually come from local government. When we have seen some of the bad stuff coming from cost shifts, and we'll have the counties pick up the cost of teacher pensions, or we lose highway user revenues, the transportation money that came back to counties and municipal governments. Those usually came from times like this, when they didn't have a big solution and they were sort of nickel and diming their way through. So we're planning to play some defense on fiscal issues, especially if there's not a big, broad solution to all this stuff. I will tack on to that, I'm at risk of talking too long, I will tack on that transportation is in its own special fund with its own revenues, and they may be in even sharper crisis than the state's general fund. Just about every jurisdiction at the MACO conference this summer, sit down and talk with the Department of Transportation about your project list, and everybody walked out of that room white in the face because just got told, we're not doing new projects, we don't have the capacity. If you got something halfway through, okay, we can continue, it might have to be delayed, but a lot of stuff is just, we're not even in the 6-year plan. And that's a jarring reality for when they're sitting on $1.5 billion short or whatnot in their shortfall. They have to say no to a lot of stuff. So we're in a tough spot on there, both for state projects that you favor, but also for the local share of gas tax and so forth that come back to local governments in highway user revenues. So kind of a grim circumstance on fiscal stuff. I want to shoot straight with you all. It's not a cheery picture, but I think that's kind of where we are overall. It's a challenge for the counties who are already feeling the pinch of paying for the blueprint. The state doesn't quite feel it the same way we do, but a couple of years down, they do, and then that's when they got a whole lot of water in the boat. So I'll stop there. Other stuff in the packet for you to take a look at, but happy to respond to your questions or other things you'd like to talk about.
So we greatly appreciate you taking the time to come down and visit with us, and we really, really appreciate the organization and what you do to help us in Annapolis. We're just one little county, and we understand that everybody together is a stronger force. And I've seen over my time there the differences between small counties and the big counties, and we work through those differences because we have the same problems, so sometimes we have a different way to attack those. So we do appreciate that. You talk about Blueprint. We're not the problem with Blueprint because they haven't given us a dime. So, if they're having trouble funding Blueprint, it's not because of Coward County. In fact, last year, they took $22 million from our education system. So, and we've had to implement Blueprint with no help from them. And I don't think we're alone in that boat. I think there are a lot of other jurisdictions that haven't seen little to anything from the state to support this mandate. And in tough fiscal times like this, what I see is they just keep passing the buck down to us. Because they don't want to make the tough decisions, but they don't mind passing on all these programs and handouts as long as we pay for them. You know, it's tough being at this level of government, as you all greatly understand. You talk about cannabis, you know, we don't really have that issue because we only have one distributor in the county. Whatever issue is, we don't get any revenue from it.
Right.
They collect that tax. We don't get enough tax revenue out of that facility to run the lights in this place
Paint
for
us
a
on,
month.
right.
And I've heard rumors of what he generates, and that's frickin' ridiculous.
We got the worst.
Ridiculous.
We got the worst deal for local governments in Maryland anywhere in the country.
Oh, we can blame you?
Yes, you can.
You said we got the worst
I know.
deal.
I think the local governments in Maryland were just left behind. What we got, the state leaders got caught up in a fervor, in all candor, that we weren't the first state to do this. We were state number 18 or 19 or something along those lines. And by the time Maryland sort of was coming online, we're looking at a number of states that had gone really aggressive with taxes on the newly legalized market. And some of those states found that if you have a grower's tax and then a distributor's tax and then a retail tax and it's 10% and 15% and 10%, people are like, I'm just going back to my guy on the corner. And you ended up, if the goal was to make this a regulated, cleaner product that you could watch and so forth, as opposed to a more dangerous product that's completely in the shadows, if you tax people back into the shadows, you miss the point of doing a more legal program. So Maryland said, well, we're going to do a really light tax. We basically are taxing it like alcoholic beverages, just one tax on the very end, and ended up squeezing out what would have been a reasonable local share in doing so. So I don't think that debate is over for what it's worth. I think Annapolis will revisit that, but they may feel like the first couple of years getting up and running needed to be on a cleaner slate. So
I'm not feeling any love that they're gonna make any changes to give us any more revenue.
I think
because
that's
you
a smart
already
place to
explained
start.
that
Yeah,
where
it's a
they
smart
are.
place to start, yeah.
But, you know, and the gambling's the same way. We hear it all the time, and, you know, and I see on TV how gambling is going up, the tax they're collecting from cannabis is through the roof. We're not seeing a dime. You know, it's going somewhere, but it ain't coming here.
I do think one place where we might see some traction, depending on how the session goes, is we're really leaning into local flexibility on how we respond to this, so giving more tools to local governments to address the continual, you know, passing of share, whether it's teacher pensions, the state assessments, highway user. And so I think there is sort of a marketplace where even if the state doesn't break off more of their own revenue for taxing, that they at least give us more tools so that we can be more nimble and sort of address, you know, the challenges that we have in our respective jurisdictions. That's going to be, I imagine, one of the high priorities of MACO this year, and I think we may have some receptivity in the General Assembly this year for that.
I think we've got a specific argument for, you know, custom-made argument for Annapolis policymakers that the sizable majority of Marylanders are already paying a local income tax that's at the cap. So basically, your workhorses for funding your county budget are property tax and income tax. You got other stuff, but all that stuff adds up to 20% or 30% maybe. So if you really need to fund the blueprint, or if you need to pursue big priorities, it's those two workhorses. And if most Marylanders, especially most of the places that voted yes for the blueprint, all their residents are already at the cap, you got nowhere to go with property tax. So they've got all these visions for how to do bigger and better things in our schools, including bringing up areas that are left behind and so forth. But by paying for all that stuff through property tax, which is arguably the most regressive and backwards tax, system, it's predictable. It's nice for a finance director and so forth, but like it's actually like not wonderful public policy to lean heavily into property tax. And Maryland policymakers need to hear that because we don't have many tools in the bag.
So for us, that's my time here. You know, the school board would come in and ask for $3 million in new money. We'd give them $3 million. They were tickled to death. They'd go home. 3 years ago, they came in and asked for $9 million. We gave them 6. Year before last, they asked for 24. We gave them 13. Last year, they would have asked for another 24, but we told them, don't you dare come in and ask for another 24. So they asked for 18. We can't sustain that. We raised our taxes. We are almost capped out on taxes. We didn't raise taxes enough to cover those increases. I tell everybody, you know, they're complaining about their taxes. We didn't raise them enough. I don't know what we're gonna do, and it's blueprint driven. It's not just blueprint, it's inflation, because just like all of us, they're seeing increased costs for utilities and labor. You know, everybody's gotta have a pay raise now, so your labor goes up. So all those impacts are coming on them. And for us to raise property taxes enough, we have citizens in this county, they can't afford it. They cannot afford a doubling of their property taxes, which is basically what we'd have to do to generate enough money to fund education. And the citizens are saying, you gotta cut. Well, we've been cutting our own budget, but the school board budget is just going sky high.
You know, excuse me, at the end of our weekly meetings, you all brought in the different secretaries of the departments. Very nice, gave good presentations, but the end result was suck it up because it's going to be our way or the highway. So in Calvert County, I have said, and I think we're all in agreement, we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to be masters of our own fate, for sure, because Annapolis isn't going to do a darn thing for us.
So one quick comment on the way the blueprint is playing out at the county level. A little different than the state. Like, they haven't really felt the pinch yet fiscally, and there's some implementation difficulties. These first few years have not played out the way that the Kerwin Commission envisioned. They thought there would be this army of private providers who would want to show up and provide pre-K seats. All the daycare people would want to become fully scaled up to be high-level graded. That hasn't happened, right? So just finding seats for pre-K where they're not there. We haven't gotten our hands around dual enrollment, getting 11th and 12th graders, enrolled in schools at the community college in some smooth way. We're doing it bit by bit, but it's kind of been, building the plane as we fly it. The other piece that I'm not sure everybody saw coming was when the state said this blueprint money, we're going to follow every dollar all the way down to the school, to the program. By reducing the flexibility that the school systems have, you end up with a debate now about, well, okay, if you give us your mandated money from the county and the state gives us their formula money, we can fund the blueprint stuff, sort of, but then we can't fund things that have been successful and important locally. We have a teacher mentoring program, or we have gifted and talented services, or football, or band, or other things like that that have been part of the educational program, but they're not required under the blueprint. And if the argument is, just do without all that stuff because everything has to be in service of what this report said, potentially you can have people who are very pro-education become skeptical about this particular plan. And I'm not sure everybody saw that coming.
Well, it's just been a challenge to implement, and like I said, the only money we've gotten through Blueprint has come through Tri-County Council with like workforce development and getting students on a career path. I think I don't think our school board has seen any direct money that would go towards salaries or pre-K or that kind of thing. So it's just putting a burden on us, and as Catherine says, the state of the finances of the state, there's not going to be any help for us. And the governor, I met with him the first year he was elected, he met with all of us and said, what's your problems? And we all mentioned Blueprint. He says, I hear that, we're gonna make some changes. I haven't seen a change yet. Because apparently the legislature doesn't feel the pain. And last year, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, said right at the get-go, we are not changing Blueprint. So how are we supposed to deal with that reality when you have the leadership of both houses saying, we're not changing nothing, and we're not giving you any money, it's on you. And so the reality for us in small counties is, we can't generate it through residential property tax. We're in a situation where it's hard to pull in economic development because of our location. We're in a tough boat. And we don't see that changing. We see them taking away our oars is what we see. So.
And we really don't even know how much Blueprint's gonna cost us. We
Not
still
yet.
don't, we
We're
still
still
don't
not
have that
sure.
bottom line number, so how do you plan for something that,
And you don't see any timeline in reducing or relaxing the mandates? Any timeline?
I think that's on the table. The most natural way for that to happen politically would be connected to a variety of things. Like the state just got put on credit watch by one of the credit agencies. That's the sort of thing that's kind of shakes them by the lapels a little bit. They're going to have their fiscal forecast that looks bad, bad, and really bad for like the coming 3 years. Is it conceivable that maybe it's not a $3 billion plan, but they come up with okay, we'll do these 4 things. We're gonna have, austerity on this front, and we'll recalculate the way the state, whatever, they put in their money toward the state pension system and give themselves a break for a few years or something along those lines. If they end up with a multiple tier thing, and one of those items is, there are a few intermediate deliverables in the plan that we're not gonna reach this target in 26, we're not gonna reach that target in 27, it's gonna be 28 and 30, or other things like that. I think that kind of thing feels like a natural part of how you might get through the next year or two. And the governor coming to the MACO conference and saying everything needs to be on the table. You heard him say, so everybody loves Social Security, but they didn't just pass it and never touch it. They went back and they've amended the Social Security system 12 or 15 times since its inception, and people think of it still as a great success. Okay, so that sounds like the body language you would say around this program needs to stay but get refined or fixed or whatnot. So
That being said, we've
right.
seen nothing
Right.
tangible.
Yeah, so, nobody's got a plan, nobody's got a 5-page piece of paper that says these are the various things we exactly want to do. It's rather vague, general.
And for us, we've already done the pre-K, we've already done kindergarten, we've already raised salaries up to the blueprint level. We're done, almost. I mean, we got career ladder left, I think it's about the only thing we got left to do for blueprint. So him relaxing the rules now aren't gonna, because our teachers aren't gonna give it back. They're not gonna stop doing pre-K.
Right.
So we're already locked in, trying to be proactive and stay on the schedule like they asked us all to do, is what we've tried to do. And so this talk of change is, who's it gonna help? I mean, unless counties have done nothing and hold out hope, we tried to be proactive and not get in that situation where we're gotta do everything at one time to meet some deadline. So if he extends deadlines now, it's not really gonna help us. And there's no money coming, so for us, we figure we're in this boat with no oars. But,
And we know it's broken, it doesn't even address the support staff. I mean, throughout
Yeah.
Blueprint and all, which we realize our support staff is critical here in Calvert, so we actually incorporated that on our own to make sure that, we maintain them.
But that's been contentious at the school level in quite a lot of places.
Right.
So not everybody's taken that path.
we didn't see how you can leave them out. You can't be passing out pay raises to teachers and not count in the support staff that hold up the whole system. You gotta treat everybody fairly.
Beside the teachers.
Yeah, so, we've tried to do our best. Education is very important. I say all the time, you have one opportunity to educate a child, and you better make your best of it. I just read in the paper, one of our neighboring counties just lowered the grading standards. How's that gonna help those kids graduating when you lower the grading standards? Wow. I mean, half of them can't read and write now when they graduate, so, anyway, I'm on a tangent.
You've got a good story to tell here, so part of our job is to do that, but help us tell that story in Annapolis. They need to hear that too.
Yeah.
And the cannabis, what we hear from our liquor store owners is that money just shifted. Because most of the liquor stores say their sales are down now because the money, they just transitioned to a different recreational. So, that's not really new money. I've been asked at the state level to see how liquor tax revenues are compared to previous years, but locally, we hear sales are down at the liquor stores because they say the money's going to cannabis. So for the state, I'm not sure all this is all new money. I'm sure some of it is, but some of it's just a transfer of a different tax. And solar, you talk about solar, we're in a little county here and we're very proud of our rural areas, and we're not too excited about covering up all our fields in solar panels because, as I said, they don't eat very well, and we like to eat, as you can see. The state sets all these mandates that I'm not sure they're taking in full account. I mean, in this country, I've always said our grocery stores are chock full. People take it for granted. A long time ago, we had visitors coming from Russia, and you know what they wanted to see? Grocery stores. Because they were amazed at how full the shelves were, because in Russia, they weren't like that. And people in this country take food for granted. So I understand when Annapolis says, just cover up the fields with solar panels. You know, that's what we gotta do, to run all these electric cars that they say we gotta own. I'm not sure the people in Asheville are crazy about their electric cars right now, because I don't know how they're charging them. So we've been, we have a nuclear power plant here that we think provides a lot of green energy to this state. We think that that should help us cover our mandate or quota for green energy. It's as
And you-
cleanest, safest energy there is.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can, we are such a unique, special county, and you can go down to Rollins at the beach, and you'll be looking for corn from one of the farms, because you know our local farmers are going to be bringing in corn and tomatoes and other produce, and that's how we live down here. It's important to our way of life and our economy.
So fortunate for us, I don't think we have a lot of large tracks that are gonna attract solar companies to come here. Haven't really heard of anybody sniffing around to put in a solar project, because it's just not like on the eastern shore. And
Right.
breaks your heart to ride over there and see them cover those fields up in solar panels. It's just
Yeah,
very
even,
hard.
even we have a large ag community in northern Baltimore County up to the Pennsylvania line, so we're
Right.
feeling a lot of those same pressures, and I'm trying my best to push it towards, you know, the gray fields and the, you know, rooftops, but it's
not
a
enough.
challenge everywhere, no.
Now, they said if you covered every rooftop in Baltimore City, it's just a dent. And, you know, but we just wish the state would take into more consideration protecting the rural areas and not just overlooking their value. One issue you wanna hear about, issues that you haven't mentioned, but we've had issues with SDAT lately. Through a few different routes, you know, we went through, our pilots expired for the the nuclear facility and the
Right.
gas plant. And we, went through a contentious process with SDAT, trying to get a proper evaluation of that facility, and, found it to be very challenging. So, and then we had another little hiccup come along a lot long ago with SDAT. I think we got that resolved through some channels, but I don't know who they're accountable to. I hear some rumbling that they may be put under the comptroller, or maybe put under somebody, but they seem very independent.
I'd like to get some more nuts and bolts from you, if you could follow up. I'd love to hear a little more about that, a little bit more about that. We have gotten onto a good track. The new leadership, new director of the department has been aggressive in wanting to sort of redevelop a partnership with local governments, and this would be some of the stuff that we'd want to talk about. There's big picture things and that sort of thing, but if there's small ball cases, we're happy to help there.
Because being commissioner form of government, you know, we rely on them to do a lot of our
Sure.
taxing
Yep.
Sure.
processes, so it's important that we
Yeah,
have a good
everybody does.
relationship. And it just seemed, wonky's not a really good term, but it seemed kind of wonky, this process we've been through with them in the past year and a half. So, yeah, we'll
I hope we can help you
let
with
you
that.
know how those things go, and
Yep.
somebody can provide some oversight. But, you know, we think Calvert County's in a pretty good, you know, we're financially strong. And our citizens aren't too crazy about high-rise, high-density development. As you travel down here and you're going to Solomon, you know, we have one road, and for us, traffic's heavy enough, and they don't want to see a bunch of high-rise apartment buildings in our county. So when we hear about mandates coming down from Annapolis for creating more, we understand we have a challenge for affordable housing, but our citizens don't have much of an appetite for high-density growth. So we feel that challenge every day, trying to figure out how to accommodate affordable housing. You know, last year in Calvert County, I think average home sale was $485,000, which a young couple starting out, a lot of blue-collar workers can't afford that.
Especially with a 6 or 7% mortgage, as opposed to the 3s and 4s from just a
Right.
few years ago.
That's right.
So when you talk about the housing shortage throughout the state, is there any one demographic that is there shortage? Is it like seniors? Is it young people? Is it just across the board that you're seeing?
I think, I mean, I know you can speak to Baltimore County and so forth, but I think it's the middle tier. It's homes in the starter homes up to, you know, single family, you know, 3-bedroom sort of things, but the 2 to 300,000 range. That sort of place is kind of
Doesn't exist.
missed by the current market, right? They're building higher than that, and some places building out apartment stock lower than that, but the lowish end ownership, that the stock is really short, and whatever. Some folks will point their fingers at local zoning. Some say it's because of, mandates that you have to have the sprinkler and you have to have, the highest septic system and so forth. Like, there's a variety of components here. I don't think there's one
Right.
ingredient in that soup. But I've heard that phrase, missing middle, is, I think, a common phrase for like where we are right now. The incentives in a private market aren't quite aligning with what the consumers really are asking for.
Because we've tried to provide incentives for senior housing and low-income housing, but we don't have any takers.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, even as we talk about sort of like in the employment base, I mean, a lot of our both respective employees can't afford some of this housing, right? We're talking about our 911 operators, we're talking about folks who are police officers, or if you're a teacher in a single income household, even with the blueprint money, you can't afford these houses. So we're talking about, I mean, I think that's sort of the conversation is changing when we start recognizing, even lower income at 80% or sometimes 60% of the area median income. We're talking about our county employees oftentimes. And so I think just understanding that and trying to find solutions. There aren't easy ones. We actually partnered with a large developer to do sort of our largest housing deal, where we did a mix of income across the spectrum, where we kept some money towards updating facilities at market rate, and then we put that money back into the project to help make affordability at both the 80% and 60%, while also lifting up the quality. But it's not enough, and it's certainly a challenge for all of us, I think, out there, especially when you want to be mindful of what your residents want in terms of like finding those opportunities without doing it sort of in large, high-rise, very concentrated development here.
and we're very blessed. Our average family median income in Calvert County is $129,000, but we still have a lot of people, like you talk about, they're not making that. They can't afford a $480,000 house. But you can't get a builder to build a $300,000 house, because they make more money. The more money the house costs, the more money they make. They want to build bigger houses. And costs, costs of everything since COVID have gone through the roof. I don't know how you build a house for $250,000 today. I mean, maybe a closet, but you can't really build a house.
Yeah. What about on the other end of the spectrum, your seniors? Are you seeing that too as a challenge?
For sure. I mean, I'm not sure the senior population in Calvert, about 25% of our population in Baltimore County are seniors, though. So we've got a booming senior population. And what's interesting, though, is that even if we do dedicated senior housing, what we're finding is, we're still seeing the impact on schools, because we'll move our seniors into dedicated housing, which they need and which we need. But then oftentimes you'll have a family move in and sort of backfill the row home or whatever the seniors were in. And so we're still seeing the impact on our schools and our roads. So it's not just the housing, then it's all the other infrastructure. And I think that's the piece, frankly, that the state misses in all the conversation about providing more housing, is there's not also the conversation about, okay, what are we doing to support counties in building the schools or the additions or the, repaving the roads, the water, the sewer. There's a huge infrastructure cost that we want to produce more housing, but we also need to make sure that we're doing it in a way that doesn't congest our roads, that we have our schools not be overcrowded. And I think that's sort of one area where I hope in the years ahead we can get more conversation around that partnership.
You're right, because it seems that this is coming down from Annapolis, and they're saying, just do it, without taking into consideration everything that you just said.
And just like you said earlier with the APF, we're telling developers they can't do it because the APF and then the state will say, hey, let's override that. And
I wouldn't be surprised if that particular conversation resurfaces this year. I think that was limited very much so in this last session, between with the exceptions of the transit stops and some other state facilities. But I think that the secretary actually has said so. I think he's interested in revisiting that in other conversations.
But like I said, if our sewer systems can't handle it, our roads can't handle it, and, the state says, yes, it can. So you're all going to fund more money for the roads and the sewers.
Yeah.
You wanna guess on that?
MDOT was here 2 weeks ago. We heard the same thing over
Another
in
cheery,
Ocean City.
cheery meeting,
Yeah, I'm sure that was even
yes.
more cheerful, yes.
Yeah, it was a good visit, so, but, you know,
A predictable visit.
yeah, it was, very predictable.
So I have one more question. Would you say the state said their deficit is?
gonna be close to $1 billion.
I think
That's
they've
what I
got
had
a
at.
structural number, it's around 600 million is the forecast for this coming year. So what they try to do is, if you take out the moving parts, like one-time revenues or one-time expenses, or you move money from a fund to another, like try and do apples to apples with revenues and ongoing expenses, they call it their structural number, and I think they're about 600 short, which probably means in practice for the coming year that they have like an $800 million problem. That's what I'm using as the back of the envelope math.
So the 450 million that was just on the table last week, where did that money go to, do we know?
They're gonna spend that.
I'm sorry. Oh, so like with the closeout from
This
from
shortfall.
last year, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So typically, I mean, anyway, you don't want the whole 45-minute extra lecture, but the state budget has to be balanced. That's what Constitution says. But nominally, all that means is that on June 30th, there's a penny left in the general fund. That's what balance means. So you can do some one-time stuff. We found this, and we cut that, and that sort of stuff to make each year work. It's the structural number that kind of tells you really where you are, and they're several hundred short. Now, several hundred million is a lot of money, but I know from experience, like the state can solve a $600 or $700 million problem, usually without laying off staff or furloughing employees or just saying there won't be Meals on Wheels or whatever. They usually don't have to get quite that serious, that sort of thing. It's the
They'll just cut county funding.
yeah, exactly. 150 here, 150 there, right? Exactly.
We know how they do it. That part hadn't changed a bit. Well, again, we do appreciate you coming down
Thank
to
you.
visit. and,
Absolutely. Thank you,
appreciate the
Thank you,
organization and all the support you provide to us,
Appreciate that.
especially with Legit,
Thank you so much.
all those services. So,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Good to see you all.
So, Mr. County Attorney, I believe that brings us to public comment.
Thank you, sir. The board adopted a resolution in 1989 intending to maintain the order and decorum of the governmental process. A copy is found here to my right. Persons are welcome to address the Board of County Commissioners on any matter germane to the business of county government. Those addressing the board should not be uncivil, rude, vulgar, profane, or otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the board's business. All speakers must identify themselves, and whether speaking as an individual, you'll be allocated 2 minutes, or as the appointed spokesperson of a group, where you'll be allocated 5. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak, please press star 9. The Ethics Commission's asked that we remind speakers of public comment that lobbyists include those who seek to influence public policy, and lobbyists must register in advance. Is there anyone in the room? Okay, speaker, last 4 digits, 1168. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Identify yourself and whether speaking as an individual or as the designated representative of a group.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Martin D. Jones, and I live at 2328 Old Bayside Road. My father, Jack and Susan Jones, own this property on 2328 Old Bayside Road, and over 150 years. And then I received a letter with my address is going to be changed from 2328 to a new number. And like I said, I've been living on my father and mother's property, and I want to know why the number has to be changed, even though I'm still living on that address.
We have a contact? Mr. Jones, we'll look into that and see, we don't know why your number is changing. That's nothing that we heard that's going on. I don't know why that would change. We'll do some investigating and see if we can't get back.
We can transfer.
Okay, well, there was just a handful of old houses that used to be on this road, and then they they building new homes here, and I don't know why they didn't go with the number of 2328 Old Bayside Road number rather than change the new home with the new number. Then all of a sudden they want to change my number, which the property used to belongs to my father and mother over 150 years. And the house that was here, I have pictures of the house, and I tore the old house down and built a new house with the same number.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We'll have members of the Department of Public Safety reach out at this number, to reach you at this number, if that's a good number for you.
That'll be fine. That'll be fine. But I just want to find out, like I said, my father and mother owned this land over 150 years.
Right.
And they want to change the number.
Understood.
Yep. We'll get back.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Jones.
Thank you.
Do you have any particular time you're gonna get back with me?
But
You'll hear from someone
by
today,
the end of
sir.
the day. By the end of the day.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That is the only caller.
All right. Guess that brings us to commissioner reports. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Friday, I attended the Parks and Rec Scholarships Fund for Mr. Gray. Well attended. A lot of county employees came out to raise some money for the scholarship fund. Nice to see everybody. On Friday night, we had the corrections session 72 graduation. We had 4 graduates that is going to come and work for Calvert County. Sheriff Cox and Mr. Bobby Jones did a wonderful job with that graduation. On Saturday, I attended the torch run to raise money for Special Olympics. Well attended also. Another shout out to Sheriff Cox and his staff for the well job they did for getting that prepared of Kings Landing Park. On Sunday, attended Delegate Mark Fisher's fundraiser, well attended, and got to talk to some delegation. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ireland.
So, as we all know, we had a pretty severe hurricane, went up through North Carolina, Southern Virginia, or Southwestern Virginia. And we had a bunch of people in our community get together with churches. Jack Smack actually delivered a U-Haul trailer full of supplies to the Southwestern Virginia area this week. The trailer was full, obviously. He was contacted by several school teachers who wanted to write letters or have their students write letters to first responders in the area. And he shared those letters. Did you see them?
Yes.
Yeah, he shared those letters with several commissioners on Sunday. And it was encouraging to see those young kids write, to their first responders and just hoping that they had the support and hoping God was with them. Jack was very, very taken back by that and conversation with him. Friday the 4th, they had the Back to Blue event at Chesapeake Church, the Sheriff's Office, Huntingtown Volunteer Fire Department. Did an excellent job putting it together. State Police Trooper landed in front of Chesapeake Church. Like I said, a lot of work went into that. I will say, unfortunately, there was a lot of events. You had First Friday in the beach, you had 2 football games, and you had that all the same night, which is kind of disappointing when you put that much effort into something to put it together. But even still, it was a very nice event. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Grasso.
Okay, on the 2nd of October, I attended my monthly Jefferson Patterson Park meeting. On Friday the 5th, it was the last First Friday in North Beach. I attended that, and that was very well attended. I'm going to miss going to those. And on Sunday the 6th, there was an open house at the Bayside History Museum. And as commissioners, we presented proclamations to Grace Mary Brady, who is instrumental, who's really the keeper of our history in that end of the county, and she does a wonderful job. We also gave to former Commissioner Pat Nutter a proclamation and former commissioner and mayor of North Beach, Mark Frazier, and they were very instrumental in getting the Bayside History Museum up and running. Later that day, along with Commissioner Cox and Commissioner Ireland, I attended the fundraiser that Delegate Mark Fisher hosted at his home, and his wife always does a great job. And I have to say about Mark really supports and mentors our candidates, and he does a great job. So we came together with some of our candidates. They were able to speak, and like was said, Jack Smack, he showed us letters that the kids wrote to these people who unfortunately lost their homes and their businesses. It's just another example how special Calvert County is. We come together not only for each other, but for other people, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And yesterday, the least athletic commissioner participated in disc golf at Ward Farm Park, and
Going to hit the circuit now?
oh my gosh, I can see where it's a lot of fun. The two people, a father and son, who really participate in tournaments, oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. But I walked the course, I participated, and it was fun. It's good to see what's going on in our county and what we offer. I'll tell you, Sneed's and Owings, they have the disc there, so if you want to get involved, take your kids, go on to Sneed's and get yourself a disc.
Nothing to it, is it, Kathy?
Oh, my goodness,
cake.
there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. I thought regular golf was a challenge. This is really, oh, my goodness. That's all I have.
That's enough. So on Friday night, I was the quiz master at the pub quiz again. It's a fundraiser for the library held at the fairgrounds. It's a really great event. Some of those people are really serious. Some of them just come to have fun. But as I said, it's a good fundraiser for the library, so I want to thank the library for inviting me to do that. I also attended the History Museum event on Sunday, and at that event, they opened up a time capsule that they thought was from 1938, until they pulled out a card that said Margaret Phipps, Register of Wills. And Margaret, the look on her face, if we could have got a picture of that. And then they soon figured out that that time capsule was probably done in 1984 and not 1938. Because Margaret said, I ain't that old. They found it in the corner of a building that had been, was remodeled. And they thought that the thing had been placed in 38, but found out it was really 84.
It was fun, though. It was
It
fun,
was
what they
interesting, the
pulled
stuff
out.
they pulled out of there, because they did pull some really old stuff out of it.
they
But some,
did.
like the comprehensive plan, 1984, it was a copy of that in there, so then they knew that it wasn't as old. But
Yeah.
the look on her face was priceless.
I can only
They
imagine.
pulled her card out of there. So. But it was a great event, and as was said, Grace Murray has put her heart and soul into that place, and if you're ever at the beach, you should go in there. It'll take you back and show you a lot of the history of Chesapeake and North Beach and how it's evolved over time. I tell everybody now that moved there, I said, boy, this place is not what it was in my day, because it's become a little upscale and a lot of new neighbors, but it was a good event.
If I might interject, just when you think you've heard all the Uncle Billy stories, you run into a few more people who have even crazier Uncle Billy stories.
You don't know Uncle Billy, you gotta go to the museum to learn about Uncle Billy. Just once again, I want to send our condolences to the family of Judge Stam, who passed last week, and send our prayers out also to the victims of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton, who's going to bear down on Florida and hit some of those same people
gonna be
again
terrible.
tomorrow. And it's going to be quite a horrific event, I'm afraid. And don't forget, elections right around the corner. You can start early voting October 24th through the 31st from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at their 3 locations in the county. And you can vote by mail or on Election Day, November the 5th. That concludes my announcements for today.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we recess to closed session pursuant to Section 3-305B, 1I, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom the board has jurisdiction. 4, to consider a matter that concerns the proposal for a business or industrial organization to locate, expand, or remain in the state.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Everybody have a great day.